Did you?
Huh?
You want to put your white wines in here?
Sure.
So they get cold.
Oh yeah. Please.
I was like, spit in
like,
it?
what are you talking about?
I'll probably drink. I'll probably drink it,
about?
but
We're going to start with this guy.
What's your name again?
Beth.
Beth. Darren. Tyler.
I know
Yeah.
you guys. I've seen your ads all over.
oh, so you need whites, yeah? Cool.
They won't be perfect, but at least they're in the bucket.
Love it.
Before I go.
Actually, I'm gonna take one of mine out. Yeah, so I used to work at SpaceX before I started the company, and and so I was in IT procurement. And anytime we needed to buy more than $20,000 worth of product, the president had to approve the purchase order. And Gwen is, she's a fucking hitter. Like she's the smartest person I've ever met in my life. But she'd approve 150 purchase orders a day as president of the company. And we learned that she would only do it on her hour and 15-minute drive home from work in her Tesla on autopilot. And so if we needed anything approved, we knew when she was leaving the office. It was like, send it in right now when she's on
Get
autopilot.
it in the window.
She's got it.
So you got the Tesla today. You don't have the truck.
Because we had an issue with the front control arm, so we had to get that replaced. So I picked it up today. So I had the loaner brought it in, and then I had clients in town, so so I drove around as opposed to the truck.
All right, hold on. Let me get this head, guys.
Yep.
So where are you from originally?
Northern California.
What part?
Like Stanford.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Vacaville until I was 12, and then we moved to Fresno.
Nice.
But
That's great.
That's awesome.
I played every one of those schools in high school.
Yeah. Oh
It's a
yeah.
tight-knit community up there.
Yeah, it is. Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Doing great. Yeah, doing great. There he is. How are you? Thank you. That's what I told everybody. I was like, you notice ticket sales went up when I got invited, not when Darren was involved.
Hey, Bob, I'm Joe. It's great to meet you. Linda, we met at the
the gala.
Yeah, the gala the other day. Sky Ranch. Yes. It was a blur. That thing went quickly.
It's been a crazy time. They're doing awesome. So we played like Oakland Dynamite, like Santa Rosa, Windsor Powell. I mean, I was on the Vacaville Bengals, so that was like the Pop Warner team that we played. Yeah.
So I went to Gunn High School, which nobody's ever heard of for football.
Okay.
Our direct rival, bitter rival to the end, Palo Alto High School.
Yeah.
They beat
That's
the
where.
shit
That's
out of
where.
us.
Didn't Dilfer's kids go there? Isn't that where they went?
Yep.
Yeah.
They graduated so many pro athletes. It's insane. I mean, who's that one of the receivers last year who's blowing up? This is gonna drive me insane. The guy in the Vikings?
Jefferson, not the
Jefferson.
LSU kid.
No, it wasn't the LSU kid.
Adam Thielen.
Maybe it wasn't on the Vikings. I mean, I don't know. He like just graduated Pally a couple years back.
Okay.
Yeah,
Where did he go to school?
It's gonna drive me insane because I didn't even know that he graduated the same year as I did.
Yeah.
No.
Los Gatos is my wife and I's one of our favorite kind of little getaway spots when we were there.
Oh yeah.
It's super chill. And then what are those? What's the bakery shop there?
Oh, shit, I don't know actually. So I only went to Los Gatos to play sports against them.
Yeah.
They're the hottest girls in any public high school. Yeah. You show up like for every female sports game.
Yes.
Ever. Senior high school, don't care. Okay, we're traveling with the team.
Volleyball, track.
Yeah, we're swimming today. Great. I'm die hard. I'll learn every step. I promise you. Yeah, we were very one-dimensional for a long time.
So true.
But that's like the dream place to live. I mean, it is perfect. They make wine over there too.
Yeah, it is. And
start
it's got a
going up the
little
hill,
small like wine as you go up because there's a couple vineyards that you can like do tastings.
They're
and stuff.
good. They're getting good too.
Are they?
Yeah, they
Good.
expanded
Okay.
big time. Like Santa Cruz as a whole AVA started like bleeding into Los Gatos, and they started planting a shitload of grapes.
What does ADA mean?
American Viticulture. Nobody wants to know that. American Viticulture Association. Nobody needs to know AVM. It means town. It means town. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Eric, do you want to test like audio?
We already have.
Okay, so how close do we have to stand to this thing? Far?
These two are podcast experts, so we explain to them.
Great.
You can probably get within an inch or so.
Yeah.
But if I don't want to get within an inch?
It's definitely not the rule. It's not the rule where you put it on your chin.
Got it.
It
Okay,
sounds
so
like
you want to be like
this
6
picks up a
inches
bunch.
away.
Whoa, hey. There we go.
I guess I don't want to be 6 inches away. That's us. Push it away. Push it away. Yeah. Too dangerous. Too dangerous. All right. Is that working now? Yeah, that works.
Is your turn? Yeah, she's gonna come through. She'll be here in the next. She's in a meeting until. I know.
She could have made it.
And she, yeah. Should be home. Is that what you're trying to say? She'll be
That
there,
kid's got.
barefoot.
You see? You want to see what we're doing? This is what we're doing. I was showing him earlier. This is small town life now, bro. This is what they do.
Oh, they got the cars. Oh, dude, you gotta send that to Judea. Holy cow. That's all we do every day. We just don't have that set up. That's a nice
It's
setup.
like there's a group that literally comes in. I think this is what they do for a living. There's these deals.
Oh, they race.
Yeah.
Dude.
She hasn't done too well. That's not my fault because I built the car.
Did you build a ramp?
No, this is at like youth groups. So this is Awana's. And so yeah.
Oh man. So we got the whole.
Hey guys, can you give me
we have
can
the
you give me
little
volume
yellow
here?
Fabulous one, the little orange one.
Oh yeah.
Can you give me
They call it
PA?
race track or tracker or something like that?
Yeah.
Hello, 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 hello. Hey, we're gonna go hot here in about 3-4 minutes. So find your way to your seat. We're gonna have a lot of people because of the weather, and then it's also the middle of the week. Slowly, like coming in. Pay no attention to those people that are late. And we're gonna kick it off, like I said, in 3 minutes. Feel free, relax. We're gonna bring food to the table. In the meantime, if you need anything, there is some charcuterie on the back. Until then, if you need a snack, there's restrooms in the front, and there's a lot of wine here. So there are no rules. We're just having a good time. So, like I said, we're hot in 2.5 minutes. I'm just letting you know.
Talk amongst yourselves.
So Joe, when did you get in?
I got in. Supposed to get in on Friday, and then the first storm that didn't happen delayed my flight overnight. So I got in late Saturday. Hung out with Steve Saturday. We had essentially like mock board meetings, mostly Monday and Tuesday, because we just brought on 2 new board members. So it's me and Zach, and then Eric. So we have board members. We have board meetings, which shoot the shit and have a couple beers. Now
that
we've
sounds
got
like a fun board meeting.
Okay, now we've got like a venture capital firm on board, and like this other guys. It's like, okay, we gotta be a little bit more professional now.
Right.
So we're like, let's button everything up before we meet with them in May. So
Right.
we did that, and then solidified hiring plans, and yeah, that's basically been it.
Just growth. I mean, you guys growing in Sonoma, or is it you guys doing anything else?
So we're growing everywhere. I mean, the big challenge that we're facing right now, or that we were facing, is we couldn't make wine fast enough.
Right.
So we were selling out, and we were selling wine. Like people would buy all this wine, and we'd be like, we have none of this bottled. Like, holy shit, we need to get this done in 3 days. Now we've got like sort of steady state run rate with our revenue online, and we're like, okay, time to keep expanding. What's next? So we're starting like testing with in-person events, testing with like this network of virtual tasting hosts that we have. It's about 60, 70 strong, who are all wine experts, but we hired them because they're entertaining more so than being
that's
wine
what it
experts.
is. Yeah.
Like, I don't need a nerd talking to me about wine. I want someone who's going to get me a little drunk and like, if I remember one thing, great, that's all I need.
That's right.
And they're all around the country, so we're like, okay, we could pop this up in every city and start growing this side out. And so we're testing there, and then we're going to go roll out 3-tier distribution, traditional retail stores, probably by the end of the year. So like right now, unfortunately, these only have a shelf life of like 3.5 months because they're small bottles with cork.
The cork,
You can see like this starts to pop up a little bit.
Yeah.
So makes a difference over a long time.
Yeah.
That'll be fixed in 2 months, and then we'll roll out with most most likely Whole Foods.
Okay.
Pretty big.
Yeah, what's going to be your like distribution method? I mean, what are you guys going to use a 3PL? You guys going to use your own?
We've done everything in house so far. We
Okay.
have to use a distributor in state. So
Right.
alcohol, we have to find
Yeah.
a distributor in
Yeah.
Texas, who then sells it to Whole Foods, which sucks because they're supposed to technically sell for you,
Right.
but they don't do
Yeah,
shit.
you still got to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, you have to hire a sales rep and
Yeah.
pay the distributor
Yeah.
30%.
Yeah.
But we're going to try and do small tests in sort of like key cities across the country because something that's successful in LA or New York
Yeah.
is not necessarily going to reach middle America, no matter
That's
how
right.
successful it is
That's right.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They always think it is, and then they go out to Minneapolis.
Oklahoma City.
Yeah, and they're like, why doesn't anyone like us? We're amazing. It's
Right.
like,
Right.
be a little bit more humble and like
Yeah.
go see the rest of the United
Yeah.
States for a minute.
Right. Who's doing the bottling? Are you guys doing?
We're doing everything, yeah. Doing the
Alright,
bottle.
nice.
Well, there's no bottling lines in the United States that
They're doing
can
smaller. Yeah.
fill these things. So we built it out. It used to be Zach and I in the back of a pure storage facility, like hand filling these things with a little like nozzle going like that. Those are some dark days.
Wow.
That's awesome.
So when you go into Whole Foods, are you going in with a box, or are you going in
We're going with a
with
4-pack, so it's gonna be a
It'll be a
variety kit
4-pack?
4-pack.
Okay.
Because there's no such thing as a variety kit of wine,
Mm.
which doesn't make sense, right?
Right.
Like simple shit sells well.
Yeah.
Variety kits of wine make up 13% of the entire industry. It's a $70 billion industry. And variety kits make up 13%.
That's good to know.
We're the only one doing it with wine. It's like, all right, this is pretty easy. Doesn't need we don't need a rocket science to pitch this one. Like, just, do you have a variety kit? No.
Here it is. Yeah.
Now you do.
Interesting.
Yeah. So
Dang.
that'll be the rest of the year for us.
Yeah. But what you said, that's how simple that is. Like, how does
Working.
no one attack this yet?
Laziness.
Yeah.
I mean, most wineries don't make money, right? Most wineries are passion projects. People
Yeah.
shit with money.
Yeah.
Even one of our investors, love him to death. Great investor.
Yeah.
They own a brilliant
It's
winery.
almost like starving artists, right? Like, if you make money, then you're a sellout,
You're a sellout. Exactly.
right? Like, Camus, oh my gosh, like, such a sellout, such a, like,
Yeah.
still pretty easy wine to drink. I still like
Capitalists
it.
about it. Yeah, exactly.
It's
They're
still
like,
really good.
They're like, yo, I know how we can
Yeah.
make this better. We'll add a little sugar here, but it's gonna round the whole thing out. It's gonna be
Yeah.
delicious, and people are gonna buy it for $90 a bottle. Like,
That's right. Okay.
I'll print money.
I'm in.
Duckhorn just went public. They got a $2 billion market cap. They print $400 million a year in profit. 400 million a year in
See,
profit.
again, you're... Who owns... And this is me being like a cheap bad drinker. Who owns Menage a Trois?
Menage a Trois is owned by, I believe, Constellation.
Okay.
I believe it's Constellation. It might be Treasury Wine Estates, but I'm pretty sure it's
Okay.
Constellation.
Okay.
I think they might have just sold it to Gallo there.
Okay, so
Yeah.
Gallo, the family is Central California, right? Like
Yeah.
that family is like
They own. They're a real estate company now.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
They
yeah.
own. Well, so they own
they own so
many
much land.
vineyards.
Yeah, so
T
they're
minus
all-
30 seconds.
They're all like Lodi, Central Valley. Like,
Yeah.
So that's like a sweeter grape because it's hotter.
Yeah.
So they're really good on like the.
All right, let's wait till the
wines are kind of
let's wait till the snacks are delivered fully,
they just freaking.
and then we'll start off.
Yeah. And feel free to ask like literally anything about the company too as we're going. Like we're basically just gonna get drunk and chat.
If you would have read the description.
That's the
Could
easiest
we
thing.
have this conversation?
We usually would be like, hey, stop. Get this on air.
Yeah.
Stop talking.
Oh, excuse me, man.
This is what people wanted.
Yeah.
I think.
The
By
secret's
the way,
going.
if y'all ever want to go off mic, I think you can.
All right.
You just go off mic and get picked up by their mic.
Like this, you're like, fuck that mic.
Yeah. You're setting us up for failure, aren't you, Eric?
Let's go.
All right, everybody, welcome. Thank you for joining us, basically in person and virtually. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the wine and draft tasting with Darren Woodson and Tyler Clutts. My name is Eric, and I'm not going to talk that long because nobody paid money to listen to me talk. Okay. What I'd like to do is introduce our illustrious panel here. First and foremost, we have Joe Welch, CEO of In Good Taste Wines, and a man that has played in the NFL for quite a time. This is Darren Woodson, and you may or may not have heard of him. He's going to be leading a lot of the draft talk, along with his buddy Tyler Clutts here, who has his own very unique draft story that on his own journey. So the only thing I wanted to talk about real quick before I hand it off is In Good Taste is a wine company that has partnered with Darren. I want to say thank you to everybody that has come out, because 20% of all proceeds has benefited the C5 organization, which is a local charity that really makes an impact in some children's lives in the area. So without further ado, I'm going to kick this over to Joe. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. As Eric mentioned, his brother's here too. They're basically identical, so we get it mixed up all the time. But as Eric mentioned, my name is Joe Welch. I'm the founder and CEO of In Good Taste. And just a little bit about us. Actually, you know what? Before we get into us, we're going to start drinking, because you're all here to taste some wine and listen to people talk, mostly about football and a little bit about wine. So if you want to get started at home, if you want to get started here, we're going to be drinking light to dark. It's generally the easiest way to do it. And that's that problem solved. Vermentino is going to be up first. This is the La Pluma Vermentino. It is an Italian grape originally that is grown in California. So all the wines that you're going to be drinking tonight are international varietals. They all have a native origin outside of the United States, all of them in Europe. We're going to go through Portugal, Germany, Italy, a little bit of France as well. But they're also grown in California. And it really sort of speaks to the mission of In Good Taste, which is to try and closer to the mic. Okay, is that all right? There we go. I was cheating. Really, we want to just try and change the way people think about what quality wine is. Quality wine is not a price point. Quality wine is not something that you have to go search out on your own. There are amazing producers around the world who are making excellent wine. And the ones who really do it well are the ones who make representative styles of wine. So all of these wines are styled to show you what a Gewürztraminer would taste like, or what for example, what we're starting with, a Vermentino would taste like. You might like it, you might not like it, but you'll at least know. And being able to try something without committing to a full $30 bottle of wine can be a pretty big benefit. So we'll get things kicked off here with a Vermentino. This is from Clement Hills, California, and nobody here probably knows where that is because we are in Dallas, Texas, but Clement Hills is just north of San Francisco, as well as across the bay. It's a pretty warm weather region, but it's got a nice coastal breeze that comes in. And Vermentino, originally being a very coastal varietal of Italian wine, loves to have that contrast of hot and cold. It almost always has a view of the ocean. It almost always will be in an area that's going to be super hot during the days. Probably not Texas hot, but hot for us Californians. And it's going to have a nice breeze to cool it off so that it doesn't overheat and doesn't over-ripen. The benefit of preventing that is that you're going to keep the sugar at an absolute minimum. You're going to keep the acidity nice and high. And this is just a crisp, easy drinking wine to get things started off. But enough about wine. Feel free to drink through this. If you get ahead of me, that's fine. We're going to drink through probably 5 or 6 of these tonight. There are 8 wines in your kit. So if you are here and you drink all 8 wines, take an Uber home. This is 2 full bottles of wine in each kit. They're deceptively large pours. We like to call them a Monday night glass of wine, where you're really filling up the entire glass. But feel free to drink ahead. And again, remember to go sort of light to dark. I'll be guiding you through the entire way. But as these guys get some wine in their glass, we're going to kick things off and really have Darren and Tyler start at the beginning and start at kind of the basics. Let's hear your draft stories. I want to hear about your draft days. Darren, I think I remember I read that you were playing golf the day you were drafted?
I did make. Well, we got a lot of feedback here, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little
I
bit.
thought it was the head injuries all those years. My ears are ringing. Well, what was the question again? That fast.
So I heard you were playing golf the day you were drafted, and I hope your score's gotten a little bit better since then.
No, actually, the story didn't get there. I wasn't actually playing golf. So I'll set it up for you. So the year before, my roommate is a guy named Floyd Fields. He was a senior, ended up getting drafted the year before. And the experience that he went through was rough. He was projected to go in the second round, early second round, late first round, dropped into the 5th round, and then finally got drafted. Well, we sat around the TV, as you can imagine, from the start to the 5th round to the point where he got drafted, and it was rough. It really was, because this is a guy that was a tremendous football player who just had this passion for the game and knew that he was going to go early, and all the the big wigs who were predicting the draft felt like he was going to go early, and he continued to fall, and we sat there and watched it. And it was hard. Emotionally, it was really hard. So he ends up getting drafted and then goes off to San Diego. He comes back for my year, and he tells me, look, you're not going to sit here and watch this. You're going to go do something. And back then we didn't. I know he's going to have something to say when I say Tyler's going to have something to say when I say this. But
he turned my mic off, so
yeah.
I couldn't.
We didn't have cell phones back then. I didn't like the look you gave me, Joe. We didn't have cell phones back then, so he
how'd
said,
you know if you got drafted?
well, they called you on your landline, right? So, but I was gone. It was a landline, right? So they called my mom, my buddy Floyd, my family were all at my house, my apartment, my college apartment. Floyd told me, I don't want you here. I want you to go. Go do something. Go play some golf. You've never played golf, and I never played golf at the time. So go hit some balls. So I got a couple buddies. And before the draft started, we went off and had lunch, and then we headed to the golf course. It was then when I pulled up at the golf course that my pager, he gave me his pager because I couldn't afford it. I was a college kid. Couldn't afford a pager back then. Why are you looking at me crazy?
No, I'm trying to figure out, like, this friend of yours, right?
He's my boy
like,
now.
Yeah, he had an unfortunate situation in his draft. Was
Yes.
he wishing that upon you?
No,
saying, like,
he was
don't
just-
be here
No.
because it's going to happen to you too?
Actually, I appreciated the thought.
Yeah.
Like taking care of your boy.
Yeah, no, that's
Like,
for sure.
'cause
What if you win the
emotional-
first round?
Well, then hey. That would have been better. But anyway, so I was out and I was just about to buy some golf balls. And he had given me his pager, and he paged me, and I took a look at it, saw it was my home line, so I knew that something, because the deal was, I'm not going to just ping you.
Right.
I'm just,
Right.
When you get drafted, you'll know.
Pagers for a reason.
Pagers for a reason. So I call him up. I go on the landline. I'm in the golf course, the golf club, and I call him back, and he says, hey, I got good news and bad news. And I said, well, evidently I got drafted, so that's some good news. He said, yes, you just got drafted. Second round, I said, I'm asking, like, what number? And I'm loud, man. As you can imagine, I'm a 21, 22-year-old kid, right? So I'm loud. Like, what round, man? And he's like, hold on, just relax. He says, you went number 30. You're the 37th pick in the second round. And I said 37th pick over because I'm trying, I wasn't a math guy. I was trying to figure, like, 37th pick in the second round. I thought they only had 20-some picks, right? You know what I mean? I couldn't figure it. He's like, no, man, overall, you went number 37 overall. And, but here's the bad news. And I said, well, give it to me. He said, the Dallas Cowboys draft. And I'll tell you this. I hated the Cowboys. Like, that was a team that I wanted everyone to beat. It was like your rival team. My rival team at Arizona State was University of Arizona. Whoever Arizona played, I was a fan, right? Mm-hmm. Whoever the Cowboys played, I was a fan. I could not stand Staubach. I couldn't stand Drew Pearson. All the names, right? You name them. I didn't like them. Randy White, Manster. I didn't like them. So I sat there on the phone. I was like, the Cowboys? Because, all these other teams had interest. The Cowboys didn't really have a lot of pre-draft interest. It wasn't like they were burning me up, calling me and talking to me about, things, or at the draft. They were at the pro day, but there was not a whole lot of interest. So I just excluded them from the process. So they end up, he tells me, you just got drafted. Cowboys drafted you. I sat there for a while, and I was like, man, okay, all right. Hey, what's next? He says, you got to get home. And back then, once you got drafted, you got on a plane.
It was that fast?
That fast. So I'm sitting at a golf course. He says, hey, you got to go catch this plane. I'm like, okay, I got to get home and get. He says, no. You got an hour and a half. You got to be on a plane. Figure it out. So I race home, get my stuff packed, and I land in Dallas 4 hours later, man. It was an amazing situation.
Did you talk to Jerry, or did he talk to Jerry for you?
No, I never talked to him.
You never talked
my,
to
my
anybody
buddy
until you
Floyd,
got into Dallas.
My buddy
So
Floyd.
Your buddy told you got drafted.
Told me I got
GMs
drafted.
Or coaches calling
no,
you.
it was Jerry and Jimmy who called, but they didn't talk to me. They talked to Floyd, who was an active player for the San Diego Chargers at the time. And
so Floyd drafted you, basically.
Floyd drafted me.
There
So
we go.
Floyd's the one who gave me the heads up. But when I got home, man, I tell you, I got turned around, and it's the weirdest thing. Like, you could hate a team all your life, right? But on the press day, we had a press conference the very next day, and this man signed a check.
From last to first.
I was like, I love you guys. Like, this is the best team ever. You know, it's just how things change. Yeah, got his cowboy boots, went all in, got a hat, the whole nine. But that was my draft day experience.
Wow, that is incredible. That is incredible. I'm still not convinced you were actually ever drafted. I think he might have just been messing with you to try and send you to Dallas really quickly.
Yeah, what if you got into Dallas and they're like,
What are you talking about?
Yeah.
You're still on the clock, actually.
Well, I know dang well he wouldn't have paid for the ticket. That's for sure. We were broke back then. Yeah.
So Tyler, I want to hear a little bit about your draft experience as well. I don't know if you were playing golf as well, or were going to play golf as well, if you did, but would love to hear how it kicked off for you.
Very different, for sure. The early round slipping to the fifth would have been a dream for me. So I played at a little smaller school than Arizona State, Fresno State. I mean, we
Go
would
Bulldogs.
Yeah, we would have whooped on Arizona State.
Definitely.
But
Everybody's always
we're
dreaming.
smaller. We're smaller.
Bunch of dreamers. I'm a dreamer too, you know.
But and so I was a defensive end in college. Had a productive career, and really, you know, and this was something that I'd really dreamed about since I was 4 years old, and I was playing at the park across the street, and I wanted to be Tom Rathman when I grew up, the San Francisco 49ers fullback. Like, that's who I wanted to be, and so every day of my life up to that draft experience was working towards that goal. And so I knew that I had some playing defensive end. I had some physical limitations, you know, height, arm length, speed, athleticism, pretty much everything. But I was naive, I guess, at the time to think that, well, my production should speak for itself, right? The effort, all the things that I could control, I controlled, right, and put good film out there. So going through the process, you know, talked to a handful of teams, and really I kind of was like, okay, if I get drafted, if I really get the opportunity, it'll be, you know, 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round. It's going to be late. And I didn't care. I honestly didn't, because I just wanted to continue playing the game, and in whatever capacity that was, I just wanted to keep playing. And so, you know, come draft day, and I can remember. So my parents lived in Clovis, California, 3278 Magnolia Avenue. It's not my ATM pin number, I promise you.
All right, we all wrote it down. Don't worry.
And I remember my parents had this green leather couch, and there's 5 kids in my family, so it was a beat up green leather couch, and we're sitting there watching the draft. I knew, you know, I'm watching, you know, the first day knowing, okay, there's no chance, and I was okay, but still sitting there, and nerves are starting to go. And I'm watching some of these guys in my position, and this was kind of the ego that I had at that point. And I'm watching these guys, and I'm comparing myself to them. I'm like, okay, this DN's getting drafted. I mean, this guy only had 6 sacks this year. I had twice as many as that. Like, but he's getting drafted. Okay, then we're going. And then we go to the 2nd round. And back then, 1st and 2nd round were the first day, right. and then the second day was third, 4th, 5th, and then the last day was 6th and 7th. And so get through the first day, kind of, you know, not surprised that I didn't get an opportunity, but you know, the next day that was okay. I got to be on high alert, and the second day was harder, because now I'm seeing guys that I'm like, there's no way that guy should be drafted before me. And I'm seeing guys that, even from a character standpoint, from, you know, all of the things that I'm judging all these guys, and I'm like, okay, so what's going on? So I just remember, and even for football games, my parents always knew when I get into that mode, stay away from me. Like, really, like game day Fridays in high school, like, don't talk to me from Thursday on, because I'm in the zone. In college, on game days on Saturday, don't talk to me Friday on. And so my parents stayed away. They knew, just, okay, give me some space. But I just remember sitting there that second day feeling how, like, kind of lonely it was, because my parents weren't there. This dream that I'd been chasing since I was 4 years old was getting further and further out of my reach. And so I get through the second day, and that was a tough night. And then, but I come back and I'm like, I kind of came into the day with a new perspective in that, all right, I said a week ago, I don't care when I get drafted. I don't care if I'm a free agent. I just want an opportunity to play and earn my spot onto a team. And so I came in with this mindset, like, okay, this is it, whatever happens today, as long as I get an opportunity.
Is your
no
agent
problem.
has your agent called you at this time?
So no, no.
Hmm?
So I chose to go. I chose a unique agent at the time. It was actually my special team coach's wife who handled a lot of specialists, right? But she was actually the only one that would take me at the time.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
So I mean, didn't think about that at the time, but that was the only agent that was like, yeah, I'll work for you, but there wasn't much working. So the third day, it's like the room just every minute I'm sitting on this green couch, and every minute the room would just kind of close on me more and more, because I'm seeing the ticker go, and my name's not up there, and it was a tough day, and it was late afternoon, and in the house, I remember it faced west, so the sun was kind of like beating right on me, and it was a hard day, and the draft finished, and I don't know if I've ever felt so defeated and hopeless. I think, and up to that point, right, my identity was football. That was it. That was who I was in high school, junior high. Tyler was a football player. That's who I was, and now there was a chance that was going to be gone. And so, what happens is, as soon as the really 7th round, they start calling players to see if they can sign them as a free agent, kind of preemptive to the draft. Hey, we're thinking about drafting you in the 7th round. Well, I got a call from 2 teams. Hey, just want to make sure this is your number. We're thinking about it. And this was early in that day. So, okay, good. I'll at least get a chance. Well, draft ends, and it was crickets. Nobody.
Damn.
And so I waited. It was 3 days, and typically all the free agents are signed in the first 24 hours, maybe 48 hours. But if you don't get a call, then it's a really long shot that you're going to get invited to at least even rookie mini camp.
Right.
And so I had kind of a realization, like a moment where it was like, is football over? Is this it for me? And I decided kind of in that moment it wasn't. And I ended up not even waiting for, somebody to get hurt in training camp or anything, and I signed right away, and I went and played in the CFL right away.
Wow.
So I had gone to a workout a couple weeks before, kind of being a little proactive on the process, but so my draft story was there is no draft story, so it was very different. And I mean, we can talk more about the rest of it, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me, for sure.
Well, I feel like that's a lot of people's draft story. I mean, there's so many college athletes, there's so many high school athletes, there's so many amateur athletes hoping to get drafted. Odds are it's not going to happen. It's 1% of the 1% of the 1%.
Yeah.
And I got a million questions for you guys. I'm going to pause really quickly and dive back into wine, because I see a couple empty glasses here and people are getting a little antsy.
And that was a downer story, so I apologize. We're going to pick this back up and have some fun.
We're about to knock some back real quick.
Yeah, we're going to switch you over to bourbon now.
Yes, I was gonna say.
Your wine tasting's over. So we're going to move on to the next white wine, last white wine of the tasting. Most people would think that with a variety kit of 8 different wines, we'd have kind of a balance between white wines and red wines. Selfishly, I actually like red wine more than white wine, and that's why we've only got a couple in here. But we're going to move on to the Game Theory Gewürztraminer. And Gewürztraminer is everybody's, I guess, they're their Great White Buffalo. They're not really sure how to pronounce the word. It's a little bit intimidating. It's a delicious wine. And so this is going to appeal to people who like Chardonnay more than Sauvignon Blanc. It's a little bit of a sweeter wine, a little bit more full-bodied. As you can guess by the kind of long, angry-sounding name Gewürztraminer, it is originally a Germanic grape. It's from a very cold weather climate, right? Nobody thinks that California and Germany share anything in common, least of all the weather. But wine's very versatile, and whenever you're trying to grow wine grapes, you're trying to grow them in the most extreme environment that they can survive in. The more stress that they go under, the better the wine's produced. It's honestly very similar to training for football. Like the harder you push it just to that breaking point, you're going to get a special wine.
Yeah.
And there's countless examples of that all over, but Gewürztraminer is a great example of that one. And this is from Northern California as well. It's actually from a much colder weather region up north in Mendocino. And when you get there, it does not look like California. Anything north of Northern California is basically Oregon. We don't know what's up there, except it's called the Lost Coast.
Yeah.
But you need that cold, because if it gets too hot, this is going to dry out. It's going to kill the grape. It's going to really solidify it and produce too much sugar. You want to balance that sugar with acidity. And so this will be a little bit more of a full-bodied white wine, but it's going to be a much more floral wine as well. So give this one a nice smell, give this one a nice swirl, and just give it a sniff and see if you get anything in terms of flowers or some rich fruit. And that's actually, I'll pause really quickly, that's actually one of the steps of the 5 S's of wine tasting. If you've done a wine tasting with us before, you've done the 5 S's. If you've done a wine tasting anywhere, I hope you've done the 5 S's. But it's a good thing to go over with everybody who might be calling in from all over the United States. And I'll go over the first 2 now, and then we're going to get to the last 3 as we move on to some rosés and red wines. And so the first thing you want to do when you're wine tasting is really look at the wine. You want to see it. Sounds cliche. It is cliche. But you can actually tell quite a bit about the white wine. I've still got Vermentino in my glass, and it's a really pale color. And every time you have a white wine with a pale color, it's going to indicate that that wine probably wasn't aged in barrel. The richer the color, the darker the yellow, generally imparts a heavier bodied, fuller white wine. But the clearer it is, generally is going to be a little bit less alcohol, generally higher acidity, but not always, and almost always no barrel aging. Finally, when you're with red wines, you can actually see the age of the wine. So when you sort of tilt your glass sideways with a glass of red wine, if you ever see any brown on the edge of the rim, that means it's an older wine. As wine oxidizes, it turns a little bit to rust. You get that rust color on the rim, you know you've got a nice aged wine. And then the second step is to swirl the wine. So you swirl the wine, then the third step is to smell the wine. So we're actually going to do all 3 right now. But when you swirl the wine, it releases a lot of the aromas up towards the glass. It's why people have $100 wine glasses. It really actually does make a difference when you're trying to taste and express different wines, but you should be able to enjoy it even if you're in a solo cup. It'll be pretty delicious if it's good wine.
So can I ask a real quick question?
Yeah.
What are the legs?
The legs.
Talk to me about the legs.
Oh, the legs. So the legs are one of my favorite legends in the wine industry, because everyone thinks that if it's got nice legs, it's going to be a high quality wine. But just as with men and women, just because they have nice legs does not mean that they are quality whatsoever. So the legs of the wine are actually an indicator of 3 different things. 1, alcohol. If it's got a lot of alcohol, it's going to have higher or more legs that you'll see on the outside of the glass. The second is humidity. There's more humidity in the air. It's going to stick to the wine's going to stick to the edge of the glass the more you swirl it. And the third one, the big elephant that nobody in the wine industry likes to talk about because we love this legend, it probably means your glass is dirty and it's got a little soap residue left in the glass. Yes. So if you've got a young low alcohol wine and you're getting legs in the glass, there's still some soap in there. So always be careful when you wash your wine glasses. Soap sticks around in these things like crazy. But that is a good question because everyone thinks it's quality and it's not.
So, and I'm gonna play because I am naive when it comes to wine. When you talk about acidity, right? Describe the taste that's associated because one of the things that like my wife and I when we went and have been wine tasting is we don't really know how to describe what we're tasting.
Definitely.
So walk us through a couple of those, on these first whites at least.
So, don't try and compare it to some very pontificating style of describing a wine, right? You don't need to be able to identify rose petals that were hand grown in a garden in New York, right? Go for the simple things. Sour Patch Kids, a lot of acidity. Lemons, a lot of acidity. If it makes your mouth pucker up a little bit, dry out a little bit, that's that acidity talking to you. The other big ones like oak or butter, right? If it tastes buttery, that's a pretty easy one to sort of figure out. You're like, oh, it's almost creamy, right? You get that creamy feel into it. That's butter. That's malolactic fermentation. That's the biggest style of white wine in California. It's getting a little bit out of fashion now. People have over buttered their white wines, and so now they're trying to go back to the middle. That's something a little bit more balanced. But with the Gewürztraminer, you're going to get a little bit of that oak. You actually will get a little bit of that
It's less
buttery
acidic
flavor.
than the first one that we had.
100%.
Okay.
And you always want to go sort of from more acidic to less acidic, because if you have this and you go back to a Vermentino, it's going to taste all off.
Got it.
It's like having orange juice after you brush your teeth, and you're just like,
no.
nope, not for me.
Got
Not
it.
for me.
Okay. So from a pairing standpoint, let's go back to the first wine.
Sure.
What is that good with?
So Vermentino is widely known in Italy as it's their version of the American porch pounder. If you go to the Amalfi Coast, any meal that you're having, their first course they're going to give you a glass of Vermentino to enjoy. It's great with seafood, light foods. It's not as much of a pairing wine. It's an enjoyable wine. So we always do talk about wine and food pairings, and they can definitely make a big difference. But most wines are designed to just be drank and enjoyed by themselves. Vermentino is a great example of that. But if you do want to pair anything seafood, anything light, salad, appetizers, cheese, you're good to go. Generally, you can't mess up with white wine and cheese, no matter what the wine and what the cheese is. It's always going to be good.
Great.
A virtual question.
Oh, let's hear it.
Yeah, and I don't have my mic on, so you have to repeat me real quick. So Sophia has asked, how has the draft evolved since when y'all were drafted, and has social media had any impact in your opinion?
Definitely not. Social media has affected nothing in the last 10 years.
You want to go first?
Why don't we start back in the day?
See, I knew he was going to see the age difference here. He's going to start with me first. I would say in 1992, the throwback, things were totally different. It wasn't an event at all. I mean, today's draft is an event, and they ramp up for it. So all the networks ramp up. The NFL Network was not around in 1992. ESPN and Mel Kiper.
Because ESPN and ABC were like
ABC,
really the two,
yeah. So they it was basically one channel, and they gave you the draft. There wasn't a ton of hoopla around it. So nowadays you have the ramp up to the draft. You have the combine. You have the playoffs for college football, and then you have the combine, which is televised now, and everyone can see who the players are, and they can judge them. Then you have social media where you get all this feedback back and forth. Someone just got fined $1,500. That's a fine
right there.
That's an NFL fine if your phone goes off during a meet. And then you have the draft, and the draft is the same thing. You have all the guys that the first rounders, they fly out, and it's this big event, and it's an entire draft day event in a week leading up to. Back when I played, there was none of that.
Really?
It was, you didn't really know when the draft day was. Half the people had no idea when the NFL draft was. And it was really quick. And back then it was 12 rounds.
Really?
In my rookie year, it was 12. It was a 12-round draft. And I think when you came in later on, it was a 7-round draft. So it went first round all the way to 12th round.
In one day?
In one day. You got it all in one day. So it's
got better for players, right? At least you know one way or another day one.
Yeah, that you're getting drafted. Yeah.
Yeah. So the evolution is, and you could speak to this, right? You studied it. It's business of sports, and they realized the revenue opportunity between the combine, the draft. As TV became more prevalent, now with social media, I mean, you can watch the draft live on Twitter or Instagram or whatever. Now, the exposure, the ad dollars that are associated with it are exponential compared to what it was, in the 90s. And so, I mean, you look at it now, you know how cities bid on Super Bowls?
Sure.
They're bidding on the draft just the same. That's why it's moving now, is because cities are bidding. I mean, you look at Nashville, was it 2 years ago? I mean, they had almost 1 million people in downtown Nashville. Yeah. I mean, that's what it is. People taking off work for a week to go to the draft, and really, and let's all be honest, right? They care about the first and second round. Like, right? If this is the draft, right? This is where, okay, this is awesome, and then this is, all right, when's it going to be over, right?
Yeah.
But it has become a huge revenue source for the NFL just because of that. So now, I mean, and I would say, and correct me if I'm wrong, and give me your opinion. I think what started it was the drama when it really started to elevate. The drama when Aaron Rodgers slipped from early rounds
that's so true.
all the way to the end. Right now, it's not just okay. I'm watching who my sports team is. Now this is a drama. Like now we're watching. Okay, what's this? And now we're getting stories on the families, which is great, right? And it's a platform for a lot of these young athletes that get to tell their story, and if they've got a cause, they can share that. But it's drama. Let's make no mistake about it. It is a reality TV show.
Yeah, and that's how ESPN spun it.
Yes,
because we kept on seeing, and if you're a football fan, that day when Aaron Rodgers continued to slide in the draft, the cameras stayed on him, and the ratings were out. I mean, just
that
outrageous.
Cameraman deserved a raise. They knew it was up.
They knew it was gone. They fed into the drama, and that's when the draft actually really became what it is today.
So I think it's perfect that you bring up the sort of the business side of the draft when we're drinking a wine called game theory, because that is literally what they're playing when they start to expand and go into additional revenue streams. But do you think that the extra focus and the social media around it and the combine and the hype, it's helping the NFL as an organization? Is it actually helping the teams draft the right players?
No. I think that the teams, when they look at their draft board, they're not looking outside at Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and Bucky and the guys that are out there. They're hyper focused. Listen, every team they all have scouts that are out there year end, and not only are they scouting the college teams, but they're also scouting the other teams, scouting themselves at the same time. So they're relying on their in-house scouts, coaches, the GM to follow the college game and to follow the game out, all together. So, what we see in all the highlights and we see all the glam and the glitz, I'm sure they see some of that because it's just the norm of us seeing those things. But the decision is not swayed on the highlights. The decisions are swayed on the fact of what they've seen. Because look, here's the one thing about scouts. Their jobs are always on the line.
Yeah.
You draft they're not influenced negatively either.
No, I think the guys that are influenced are the Jerry Joneses of the world, who probably sees the highlights and it goes, "Oh, crap."
That's what this guy. The scouts could be doing a great job.
They could be doing
draft this person.
Absolutely.
Who's writing the name on the who's writing the name?
So, and that's the dysfunction. Let's call it what it is. That is the dysfunction in the Cowboys organization, because you have the head guy who's watching all the highlights and he's going, "Oh my God, I'm the voice." And whatever I say goes. So that's the problem. But if you watch good draft, you watch teams that actually draft extremely well, it's because they have put the time in.
It's discipline.
And they actually trust those decision makers, those scouts, the GM or whoever it is that's out there day to day watching these players play.
Yeah, and I agree. But I also think that sports of business has played a toll on it, because if you've got Baker Mayfield or you've got Carson Wentz, who's going to sell more jerseys? Who's going to put more people in the stands?
But long term or short term?
Well, but that's it, right? Is that's what owners have to dig through, and that's where we've got to look at the scouting report, and like Darren said, the teams that draft well are the ones that are disciplined and they have a plan going to it, and they don't stray from it. It's not an emotional decision. But I mean, look how close we were to drafting Johnny Manziel. I mean, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Thank
goodness
sold a lot of we had a scouting report. We had a scouting report on Zach Martin.
Yep.
And we chose him as opposed to Johnny Manziel, right? Like, look at the difference in player that they are. And so, but here's the thing though. Jerry, had he made that decision, it probably would not have been a bad decision because of the revenue that would have been made. Because it would have
been a horrible decision.
I don't know.
Look,
we were at a gala the other night. A Johnny Manziel jersey sold for $600.
I get it.
I
get that.
For the team, yes. For the organization, no.
Yeah. But you know what? That was like one of the.
They proved it over and over and over.
The organization is the team. You got to have the money behind the team.
But that was the first time I honestly felt like Jerry trusted his scouts
and Steven
to make the right decision, because you're seeing one of the most dominant college football players in Zach Martin, who's dominating the game, and we saw Johnny as well, right? But we also knew,
it was baggage.
There was a lot of baggage that applied that went, and we saw. And listen, if people wanted to make that decision early, they would have drafted Johnny Manziel 1, 2, 3, or 4, 5, right? But they didn't. They saw that the fact that they trusted their board and they understood where they wanted to go. And I think Tyler said it exactly right. You take the emotions out of it. You have to take them out.
Right.
And
it's a business decision.
It's a business decision, and it's a commodity decision as well. Understanding what the commodity is and how much time that if that player was available in college, he probably will be available in the league.
So it's interesting you bring up the commodity aspect of it, because I feel I guess I'll get to my question a little later. I want to hear how you guys think about how the draft has changed after the rookie contracts were instituted, both for the players, but then also the strategy that the teams take and the emphasis that they now put on draft picks versus prior when you had to negotiate a contract. And there's a whole lot we could unpack there. But starting on, I guess, how rookie contracts were initially signed when you first came to the league versus how it's changed, and then how it's affected teams' decision making.
So I mean, so my age, right? Sam Bradford, $60 million deal, fully guaranteed. You know, that's very different than now the number 1 overall pick.
So he just retired right after that, right? Guaranteed buy.
He made a good run now. Good for Sam. But you know, the difference is now is there's that decision, that CBA in 2011, when they instituted that, it was that the year that they switched it?
I don't know. The wine is talking to me.
The new CBA was instituted in 2011, but when they instituted that, now that was 100% in favor of the owners because there was less risk, right? There was less exposure from a monetary standpoint. And look, hey, if this pick, we can take a little bit more risk on the player if we're a little bit more uncertain because hey, it's only a $15 million hit for a first round pick that's a bust, right? Look at Taco Charlton. It's like had he signed a $45-50 million contract, they'd have given him 2-3 more years to prove his worth. Well, now it's like, you know what? We're not that invested, and we've made the decision. Now we can act on it. So it gave ownership and it gave organizations more confidence, like to take a risk. Because it was mitigated because of the contracts.
It just sucks to the fact that when you take those risks and they don't pay off.
Yeah.
You know, one of the hardest things about building a team is understanding that when you draft someone in the first round and they don't pan out, that sets you back. And don't draft a quarterback that doesn't pan out because, man, now you're really.
But that's happened for the last decade.
Yes, I mean, it has. It has.
You can go all the way to the Rams, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. I mean, this has happened
but,
over and over
but then you'd have the argument that Jared Goff actually did pay off.
He took you
to the Super Bowl, right?
So did Carson Wentz.
Carson Wentz, who would have been the MVP.
He was an MVP caliber player.
That's correct. True. So, I mean, you can't. I'm of the firm belief that it's hard to draft. First of all, look, I know there's a lot of, Monday morning quarterbacks. I'm one of them.
I'm the best one.
Yeah, I'm the best, right?
I'm brilliant on Mondays.
But
Tuesdays, not as much.
But do you know how hard it is to draft the player who you think can make the transition from the SEC in college football to the NFL?
Or in Carson Wentz's case, or in
North Dakota State.
What's the kid? Yeah. So yes, he dominated at this 1AA level or FCS level, right? What the competition is very different there than it is in the SEC, than it isn't in the Pac-12, than it is in the Big 12. So, I mean, that's a lot of work, and so I think again, scouts are very undervalued from a perspective of the general public because of the amount of work, and when they dig those small school kids. There's a kid out of like Montana. He's got a bunch of videos right now, like training out in the woods and stuff like that.
Running up mountains.
I don't know. It's crazy.
Taking down.
But elk. But finding those and who's done the best job at that in the last 20 years? New England Patriots. They find the guys that nobody notices, and they see something, right? Because they have a characteristic. And I'll kind of brag on the school, my alma mater, Fresno State. Pat Hill, our head coach at the time. That's what there was something that he looked for, and he could define it, and he could see it, and he could tell you right away if that person had it, and it was grit. If you don't have grit, you can't play here. I don't care if you're a 5-star recruit out of Long Beach Poly, or you're or you're playing at Dinuba Christian School. It doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
If you've got grit, then you can play here.
That's a great story because Jimmy Johnson and those of us that are Cowboy fans in the 90s, you saw how Jimmy drafted. I mean, 7th round, 8th round, 9th. The 12th round pick was Larry Brown, and he's an NFL. He was the Super Bowl MVP. That's how Jimmy Johnson drafted. But it was because he was looking for a certain person. And when he came to Arizona State and actually asked questions to my position coach, which was Lovie Smith back in when I was coming up. He was my position coach in college.
No wonder you're so good. Okay, that makes more sense now.
But he asked.
I thought it was just athletic ability. But okay,
that is athletic ability. It's all on me. But he asked those questions, and the question that he asked when he called Lovie Smith, is he an alpha dog?
Really?
That's what he's looking for. He was looking for alpha dogs, guys that were available, played through injury, loved the game of football, and that's what they did. So his questions were, does he have any hobbies? And Lovie Smith said, yeah, football. Those were my hobbies. I didn't play the guitar. I wasn't a DJ mixing. I wasn't a rapper. I played football, and that's what he was looking for. And those are the type of guys he brought in because he felt like, and he knew that if I can handle the Michael Irvins and the Emmitt Smiths of the world,
right, he did it
I can
Miami.
I can handle any of these kids, and I can get them to play at a high level. So that's an incredible the thought process of how you draft is, what are you looking for?
Yeah.
So I got another virtual question here. So Joe will tee up another wine for us, and while he's talking about it, you guys can think about the question, which is, why do so many teams mess it up? Which you kind of addressed right there, but the second the Jets perennially, and then the second thing is, do you think that because you're just talking about the coach, do you think that there's too many voices in that draft room? So why don't you move us along, Joe? But y'all think about that.
I feel like they could say yes to the second one pretty quickly.
Yes, I think there is, but it does take an army.
Joe's about to.
No. Finish off.
Dude,
We got plenty of wine.
He
We got
just
plenty of
said
time.
the Mets,
Dude,
you don't
I'm
listen to
rolling.
the
Got plenty of
directions. So
time.
what happened was the wine took over.
I'm trying to buy time between rounds for me so we can get through this thing. Go ahead, Joe.
All right. We'll move over to some red wines now. So we do have a rosé in this kit, and we're going to talk about it with the wine after this one because it actually pairs pretty nicely with the Sangiovese we're going to get to. But we're going to start with the Red Tide Barbera, and Barbera is one of the best Italian grapes you'll ever find. It's native to a small region in the northwest part of Italy called Alba. And Alba is actually known for being kind of the Napa Valley of Italy. If you think about expensive wine, old wines people will pay $2,000 a bottle for, it's a wine called Barolo. And Barolo is made with the Nebbiolo grape. You can't drink it for the first 10 years. It tastes like crap. It's tons of tannin, huge body, but if you wait 15, 16, 20 years, it's absolutely delicious. The tannins smooth out, and you get a spectacular wine. And actually, Wine Enthusiast releases the best vintage to be drinking for each varietal. They release it every year, and they said that the right vintage of Barolo to be drinking right now in 2021 is the 1999 vintage. So the people who live in Alba, the people who make Barolo, they can't afford to actually drink what they're making. So they drink Barbera. This is the people's wine there. This is what they have every night at dinner. This is the people's choice. It's absolutely delicious. It's a nice, light-bodied red wine. When people think red wine and pizza, it's Barbera and Sangiovese that are leading the way there. It's got really nice fruit content. It's not tannic, not very acidic, very, very balanced, easy to drink, but will pair with anything you want. So if you're ever nervous at a restaurant and you ordered seafood, but you got steak coming on the way and you don't know if you're going to finish that full bottle of white wine by the time steak comes, Barbera is going to hit the spot. These light-bodied red wines are great dynamic wines to use for any occasion. And you can also chill them because it gets hot here in Dallas. Right. It gets really hot in the summer.
That's the question I have for you.
Please.
That is okay. So
in.
My wife just showed up right now. She's gonna have a million questions about wine because I'm not. Anyway. So, if I have a red, should I chill that red wine, or does it matter which red it is?
The answer is yes. You should chill it. But the second answer is it depends on the red wine. So everyone thinks red wine is room temperature. It's not. That's 70 degrees. That's pretty warm, right? We don't live in Chicago here. We want a nice, comfortable climate. Red wine should be drank closer to 62, 63, 64 degrees. You should be chilling it down. If it's at room temperature, it's the wrong temperature. And restaurants are the worst with this. Not this restaurant. They're amazing. Yeah. They do a great job.
The best.
But every other restaurant.
Are you listening to this? Hey, Tiffany, Woodson, are you listening to this? Huh? You're talking. You need to hear this.
Trouble, man. You're getting in trouble.
Well.
So restaurants are notorious for serving their red wine much too warm. Yeah. Because their wine cellar is usually right next to their kitchen, and they can't keep their wine quite cool enough. It's expensive, right? You got to refrigerate it all the time. If you got a big cellar, that adds up really quickly, especially if you're a restaurant. It's a tough game out there. So red wine should always be chilled down a little bit. Now, there's some red wines, like a Barbera, even some Pinot Noirs or Grenache, that you can actually drink close to a white wine. You can put it in your fridge, keep it in your fridge, and you'll drink it nice and crisp and ice cold. But they need to be very light-bodied, low alcohol. So light body just means it doesn't have a lot of tannin. When you look at it, you look at this wine, it's a little bit see-through, right?
Yeah,
That's a light body.
Right.
It means it's got less tannin, it's got lower alcohol, and it's a lot of fruit characteristics. When you chill a wine, it will reduce all of the aromas, the flavors, pretty much everything across the board. It'll reduce it all down. Okay. And so if you've got a strong fruit flavor, that's going to show forward, and you're going to get a nice fruity red wine that's ice cold and is absolutely delicious. But if you've got, a vintage Cabernet Sauvignon, chill it down to 63. Keep it there. Don't go too cold on that, otherwise you'll ruin it.
A cab.
A cab. Yeah,
Okay.
Cab you want a little bit warmer.
Okay.
But I encourage people, if your wine's too warm, put an ice cube in your wine. It's okay.
Wow.
It's not the worst thing in the world.
That's like
it's not the worst thing in the
There's
world.
no way you put an ice
It's not the
cube
worst
in
thing
your
the world.
wine.
I see Dan, he was about to do it. He was reaching for ice.
Really?
It chills it down really nice. You just need one ice cube and it does
so
the trick.
you can throw one ice cube.
that's
That's not like a
100%.
total faux pas. Like you can't.
Wine's 90% water and probably 80% water and 13% alcohol and a bunch of other shit. It's not going to dilute it that much. It's not going to dilute it that much.
And I enjoy a red, but I tend to stop drinking them
in the summer
come May because it's just not refreshing.
Right.
And so this would be much better. So now that I know I'm not
chill reds.
totally
Do
looking
it.
like a
Do it.
buffoon.
No, so I've always heard chill the whites, the reds. You can just leave them at room temperature.
Chill them down a little bit. That's what everyone thinks. It's the easy way to think about it.
So
It is right. It's fine, but if you chill it even just a little bit, it makes a big difference.
So if I've got a wine fridge and I've got reds in it, what do I want to keep that temperature at kind of across the board? What's a safe temperature so that I don't ruin a cab?
If it's just red wine and it's a wine fridge that you're aging, drop it down even a little lower, 58, 60 degrees.
Okay.
You can keep that
Wait.
cold for storage.
So if you're aging.
If you're aging it, yeah.
If you're no. What if I'm like,
if you're ready to drink it,
I'm ready to drink.
63, 64. If you've got a fridge that is that specific, 63, 64 is going to be nice.
Okay.
It's going to be cooled off. And remember, it warms up as it's in your glass.
Yeah.
Right? It's the whole reason why Psalms are snobby about never touching the bowl of the glass.
Yeah, right.
It's because your hand's going to warm up the wine.
Got it.
That's why you always hold by the stem, pinkies up. But you can be a little flexible with it. Know it's going to warm up over time. But if you're aging it and you're trying to keep it for 10 years, cold, dark, dry places. You
I
don't
told
want
you. I've been telling you all this all these years.
I'm sorry, Darren.
I've been trying to give you that. I've been kicking this knowledge to Tyler
How much
forever.
wine did he waste? That's okay.
I don't
we'll
know.
go
I mean, he's wasting a ton of wine.
Sure.
I've just been,
So question on like, was it oxidizing the wine?
Yeah.
Bringing oxygen into it. When you pour it, I mean, sometimes you see a real neat, clean pour.
Yep.
I mean, does that make a difference, or is it better to get a messy? When you see in restaurants, right? They do this whole display where they're pouring it from 6 feet over your glass, right?
Yeah.
Like what does that do? Because like if you get an aerator, right?
Yep.
At some vineyards, if they just open a bottle, they'll throw one in and they'll aerate it, as they're pouring your glass for tasting. What does that do, and what's kind of the timing from when you pour to when you should drink?
There's a lot of debate on this. In general, though, if you've got a younger wine that you don't want to wait around to drink, if you aerate it, it'll open it up a little bit more. It'll kind of artificially age it a little bit more really fast right before you're drinking. But you can get crazy with it. You don't necessarily need to aerate old wines.
Okay.
You need to decant them,
Right.
because you have to get the sediment out of the bottle. But that's the big debate, because a lot of people think, okay, it's a 20-year-old bottle. I need to let it sit and let it breathe for a while. nobody's ever gone. There's never been a consensus one way or another that actually makes the wine better.
Yeah.
You have to get the sediment out, and that's why you want to decant it, and that's why you do the whole show. But if it's an old wine, it's already been aerated. It's already been oxidized.
Yeah.
It's already been oxidized. That's the aging process.
Yeah.
Now, if you want to get a little trailer trash with it, there's something called hyper decanting.
All right.
And
let's
I'm
hear
really
it.
hoping somebody
My
tries
people.
this at home,
Yeah, folks.
because it is wild. You basically take a cheap bottle of wine, maybe a $12, $13 bottle from Trader Joe's. That is
Wait, that's
Italian
cheap?
wine.
That's on point right there, isn't it?
See, now I'm showing my bougie. This is bad. I gotta leave now.
No.
We're
I'm
just
just
saying.
kidding.
Selling out.
We're
We're
just
just
asking questions. Really kidding.
So you take one of those bottles of wine and you pour it in your blender. Blend it.
Blend the
Blend
wine.
the wine. Blend the wine. Hyper decanting.
No.
I've heard it works.
You know how much money I'm going to save now?
I really hope somebody goes home and tries hyper decanting,
Yes.
blending the wine.
Allegedly, what's it do?
It's just going to put a ton of oxygen into the wine really, really fast, right?
Yeah.
That's that splash pour. It's kind of like, even with beer, you're not supposed to just pour without any foam.
Oh,
Yeah.
right.
You want some
Foam,
foam. That's
right.
the nitrogen getting out.
Yeah.
Hyper decanting's doing that to it. That's an extreme. It's an
All
extreme
right,
for
hey,
sure.
that is gonna be posted on the Darren Woodson Show
the 12.
Instagram page.
Yeah, exactly.
Blending
$12
up
bottle of wine.
Wear cheap clothes in case it opens up. Just be careful.
All right,
with that
Charles Shaw going in the blender.
Charles Shaw used to be one of the best wines you could possibly buy.
So funny story about
Yep.
Charles Shaw. So my wife and I, when we got married, this was after Canada. I was out of ball for a year, and we had zero money, and so we're paying for our own wedding, and it comes to alcohol, and it's like, okay, so we want everyone to have a good time. You know, we don't want it to get messy, so we're just gonna do beer and wine. But beer and wine starts to get really expensive, right? And we had 300 people. And we were like the first of our friends, so you had to
Real
invite everybody,
expensive.
right? First of our friends to get married, so you had to invite everybody. And so what we did is we literally went and got Charles Shaw wine at Trader Joe's. We took the labels off. We put a picture of us on it, and then
go.
put it on the tables. And I had at least a dozen people come up to us and say, "Oh my gosh, this is the best wine. What is it?" I swear. I was like,
Caymus,
oh,
it's
yeah,
Caymus.
yeah. Yeah, we had it custom shipped in from Napa. It was this.
Did you have a keg at your wedding?
But you're not.
Yeah,
you're not
with
the only
3
one.
kegs. Hey, you didn't have to pump it yourself. But we did have someone pump it for you.
That's where you splurge.
Hey
This was the
Joe,
bumper. That was the
Joe,
bumper.
we have a question real quick about decanting. Have you ever heard about using a candle to decant?
Yeah, so that's actually a really good way to do it, right? Because decanting an old bottle of wine is you're trying to remove sediment.
Right.
If you've ever poured a glass of wine, you look at the bottom, it's all that crystals
Yeah.
and brown stuff. That's you don't want that in your glass.
Huh.
But it's hard to see when you're actually pouring out the sediment versus pouring your wine. So if you pour a full bottle into your decanter, the sediment's going to go with it. So you have to pour really slowly, and then you have to start pouring even slower as soon as you start to see some of that sediment come up. So if you hold it over a candle and you hold the neck of the bottle over the candle, you can see through the bottle, see some of that sediment, and as soon as you see the sediment come, you pour a little slower, a little slower, a little slower. Helps you get every last drop out of that probably expensive bottle of wine
Yeah.
and not get the sediment in there. But it's interesting that you talk about Charles Shaw, because $2 Chuck actually was a Somm favorite for
$2?
a long time. $2 Chuck
$2
was a
Chuck.
Somm
Okay.
favorite for a long time, because when the housing market first crashed, actually in the 90s,
Yeah.
all of these vineyards in Napa, these high-end vineyards, had contracted massive amounts of grapes, and they had nowhere to sell them to. Right? People who were buying their wine couldn't afford to buy their wine anymore, so they had to offload it onto the market for pennies on the dollar. And Charles Shaw was standing right there and was just like, I will take all of these incredible Napa Valley $100 a bottle grapes and put them in $2 Chuck. And for a while, there would be Somms who would drive around to Trader Joe's, go in, buy 12 bottles, go to the parking lot, open them all up, take a little sip, and every now and then they go, oh yeah, this is a winner, and they go in and buy all of it.
No
Buy all of
way.
it. So it was a steal, the steal of the century for a while.
That's
Not
incredible.
quite so much anymore,
No,
but
no,
for a
no.
while it was up there. It was up there.
This one's really good.
Is after the first housing crash. So it happens every time there's a housing crash or a big recession. But this was in the early mid 90s.
Every time there's a housing crash, just go to Trader Joe's.
Go to Trader Joe's, buy their $2 chuck.
Don't even taste it. Just buy them all.
It's a cheap investment. It's $2 a bottle.
That is good.
I like this one.
Yeah.
It's nice, right? It's
Yeah.
fruity. It's
Yeah.
Are
easy.
you more of a red or a white?
Red.
You're
yeah,
red.
definitely
Yeah.
red. Yeah. I mean, I think the only time, is like summertime where it's like ice cold.
Yep.
And I'll
Yeah.
drink a white. But
Yep.
Yeah, I'm a red.
Well, so let's get back to football a little bit because I think it was a pretty interesting question around how managers how many voices are in the room when it comes to draft day, and I want to expand on that, actually take it out a little bit, because how many voices are in the room when they're deciding what to do with their draft picks even before draft day, and how does that vary team to team, right? You've got the Los Angeles
Yeah.
Rams who aren't drafting in the first round until I'm 90, and then you've got the Miami Dolphins who can take the entire first round if they want to.
Right.
So how does that strategy play with the coaches, and then how does that lead into their decision making for where they are?
As far as people being in the room all together, or
yeah, in the room, or in the decision making process.
I think everyone has their own set of protocols on how they go about draft day. I know the Cowboys bring in scouts, coaches. Of course, Will McClay is the
head of player personnel.
head of player personnel, but he is the acting GM. He is the GM. Just hadn't been named that. Jerry's still the GM by name, by title. But they all get together, and this is a process for them. And I can't, listen, I've been out of the loop for a long time, but I remember how they used to go through this, and they would meet. The GM would meet with the scouts, and they would go back and forth on information to build their boards.
Mm-hmm.
And these boards are, their first round board is just top to bottom, and they're just dropping names. Even players they know they're not going to get.
Mm-hmm.
They're just putting names on the board on who the best players are as far as draft order is
We
concerned.
never know what's going to drop, right?
Right.
Justin Jefferson dropped to the Vikings.
Exactly.
There's the
Yeah.
famous video of the coaches laughing
Yeah.
when the Eagles passed on Justin Jefferson.
Yeah, exactly. A player too,
Yeah.
right? So, but they get all this information in, and it's an entire year of just bringing information in. And people always say, well, they just did their draft board. No, they've been working on this draft board for months.
Right.
And they just been slotting guys' names in it. And it always changes. It's forever changing. Like, guys will move up the draft board, move down the draft board on whoever team this is. So whatever the protocol is, and it's all different. It's going to be different around the league on how the system is played out. I've just been more familiar with how the Cowboys have done their process.
Yeah, I think, like you said, there's different strategies, and the main two are need versus best available.
Right.
Right, and you can never go wrong drafting the best available. It's just how you judge it.
Right, it's a commodity.
Yeah, and so how do you get there, and how do you make your list of what, in your opinion, is best available? Because everybody's best available list looks very, very different. So I think, in my opinion, right, if I'm a GM, I think the best teams not only look at what scouts are analyzing, what the player personnel team our department is looking at, what the coaches are looking at, but they're also getting feedback from trusted players, because the reality is that the trusted players are going to be playing with these guys, and you can talk to look, I could go in and I could sit and watch film I used to play, but if I'm watching film with Ezekiel Elliott or give me another running back. Christian McCaffrey.
Pollard.
So someone like that, right? They look at the game different than I do, and they see it different. And so if you're a scout and you've been a scout for 30 years or 15 years, whether you played or not, and reality is most of them didn't play past high school or college, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's why they got into scouting. They love the game. They understand it. But a player looks at it from a very, very different perspective, because a scout or sometimes even coaches look at it, okay, did they do their job? Well, a player looks at it as like, okay, what did they have to do their job? And I understand it. So what adjustment did they have to make? Or what athletic move or did they have to make? It's very different. So I think the great teams really take all of the information and then they weigh it.
Yeah.
And to me, that's how to build the most complete draft, because if you're just listening to scouts and player personnel guys, I think it's an incomplete story. I don't think you're getting all of it.
Sure.
And so yes, I do think, to answer the question in a very long way, is that I think there's too many voices that don't think differently and have different perspectives.
It's a lot of voices, but it's a lot of the same.
The same voices, right?
Rather
And
than
it's
having
and it's
different
all
voices
and like
across the
Darren said, scouts and player personnel, GMs, like literally their livelihood is based 100% on the recommendation that they make.
Absolutely. And you will not believe how many times when you draft a guy and it say it's a certain scout that says his name is Scott and he drafts a guy.
You know who stood on a table to fight for you.
You know damn well that it was Scott.
Yeah.
Because Scott's going to come out to practice and every day he's going to look at this player and go, hey, how you feeling now, brother? Everything's good? Need any help?
Know.
Because if he doesn't pan out, Scott's
gone.
he's on the line. He's on the line, and they will give guys early on that specifically like first 4 rounds. They're going to give you leeway.
Yeah.
That chain is really loose.
Yeah.
You know, but if you're in that 5, 6
Afterwards.
round, you can forget it, brother. That chain is tight.
So we got a question over from Eric.
Yeah, we have a highly controversial question here, and which is kind of a new way of thinking in the NFL. If you follow the Twitterverse out there, do you think teams should spend top 10 picks on Pro Bowl caliber running backs? It seems like they have a short prime, and you can find something relatively comparable in the later rounds now.
I lived in that room, so I'm gonna just jump in.
Wow. Oh. Someone's gonna be biased. Someone's gonna be biased here.
Yes, because of the conversation we had earlier. It's a low risk, right? You can get 4 really, really good years. Now, do I think a top 5 pick? I mean, if it's a special player and he can make that kind of impact, yeah. Who touches the ball more than the running back?
Quarterback.
That's it, right? So the impact, if they can, touche.
So you want to be
touche.
smart. You're a smart ass,
Threw us
Steven
under the
over
bus,
here. Yeah.
But when you look at the stat line and you talk about touches, right? That's either a catch or a carry, right? Who has more? Nobody has more than a running back. So why would you not invest on the front end when now it's more affordable than ever? And at the end of year 4, you can cut ties. Okay, I'll draft again.
But that's a good point because I want to expand on that question.
No,
question. Is it not just drafting? I agree that you should take a first-round draft pick on a running back. Do you sign him to the long-term contract?
No, see
after
that's
the
see,
contract?
honestly, I'm just the opposite on the first round. Like, listen, that running back better be special. Like he's got to be Adrian Peterson special for me to draft him in the top.
Agreed.
10.
I agree.
Right? But if he's like a guy that was like an ETN, who's coming
from
out
Clemson,
right? If through my assessment, I feel like he's a guy that's going to give me 2 contracts.
Yeah.
If he can give me 2 contracts, yes, I'm signing him. But if I feel like he's a guy that, and we're looking at it like right now, let's be honest, we're looking at Zeke right now, right? And we're seeing Ezekiel Elliott and how great he was as a player at Ohio State. And he came into the league and he was great in his first couple of years, right? And now you draft a guy like Pollard. What round did Pollard go? 5.
Yeah.
And Pollard is special.
Yeah.
So it's almost like, okay, I just drafted a guy. Look, I've always been in the Parcells mindset. Bill Parcells used to always say, look, running backs, look, there's a whole bunch of them. There's a whole bunch of them.
What does every 8-year-old kid want to be? He wants to be the running back.
He wants to be the running back. But there's a lot of those guys that are out there, but there's not a lot of cornerbacks that can shut you down. There's not a lot of left tackles that can protect the quarterback's blind side. There's not a lot of, you know what I mean?
Yep.
Like even the safety position. Yep. I'm not a guy that's going to say I'm going to draft a safety in the first 10 picks unless it's Ed Reed.
Yeah. Yeah, I
He's
agree.
got to be a guy that's going to be a Hall of Fame type guy that can get 2 contracts out of.
Yeah, I agree. And in the running back scenario, it has to be a day 1 impact. Like he has to be special enough
There's
to
no
make
training period. He has
no.
transition
There's
right
there's no questions. He's the guy.
Is that a harder role to transition for though? I guess
So I'll say it's harder now than it ever has been because there's so few pro style offenses in college. Right. So you don't see a lot of college running backs really learn to pass protect. So that's the biggest gap. So and to the value of a running back that I truly believe is everyone's like, oh, how does he run the ball? Like one thing that Zeke is highly underrated and people don't give him enough credit for is his pass protection.
Right.
He is very, very good and very rarely misses on assignment and execution on pass protection. So that is an unsung. That's like saying left guard. You don't hear from Zeke on third down, or you don't hear from him on second and long. Well, it's because he's pass protecting and then getting out, and he's a check down. He's an outlet for him.
Right.
That's a win. That's a huge, huge win for the offense when Dak can stand up and get the ball to Amari or Michael Gallup.
Yeah.
You know, so
Time in the pocket, right?
yeah, so if the biggest gap right now for running backs transitioning to the NFL is going from these spread offenses, unless you're in the SEC, but in learning to pass protect, learning to read defenses, because defenses get really complicated when you get to the NFL level, right? Defensive coordinators are really smart, players are really smart, and not necessarily from a scheme, because they're still cover 2, they're still cover 4, they're still cover 3, they're still over fronts, they're still under fronts, but they learn how to disguise those really
those zone
well.
dogs and all the other things. Look, here's where my mindset really changed. And we remember Leonard Fournette at LSU and how dominant of a football player he was, right? And
tore the league up, yeah.
he tore I mean, just as unbelievable.
Couldn't stop. Literally nobody could stop him.
Yeah.
And I felt like, okay, this guy's going. He's going to be one of those Adrian Peterson type guys, right? And then he gets into the league, and you're like, okay, like, but there's so many. And I'll say this right now.
You just won a Super Bowl, Darren. Easy.
Yeah, as a backup. As the backup running back. So I guess I would look at things as, and I'm a firm believer in, you build your team up front. Like, I know we look at things and we go, oh, that great wide receiver, and we got all these great, athletic guys. But when you got up front dogs, you got guys that can protect the quarterback, they can run block, and then you have guys on the defensive side of the ball that can stop the run. The big boys up front win games for you. And it doesn't look like it because you see all the wide receivers get all the big numbers. But Tony Romo or Dak Prescott don't have time unless those guys are up front and doing their work.
You see when it's not there, right?
When it's not,
you see Jared Goff start to stumble as soon as his O-line starts going. Was he a great quarterback, or did he have a great O-line?
And we saw this past year. The O-line with the Cowboys fell apart. So what happened?
Last 2 years.
Yeah, last 2 years. So, build your team up front, and then you'll see the success on the outside.
I mean, and it really is, right? The front seven are, on the offensive side and the defensive side, right? That's the foundation for your house. Yeah. If that's not solid, then it's not going to continue to stand. Right. And so, and 100%, I couldn't agree more. Like, there's these sexy, flashy positions, but if you're not drafting for a foundation, a strong foundation in a team, I mean, you could just keep drafting. Yeah. Nothing's going to change.
Yeah, well, the poor Browns went through how many quarterbacks 2 years ago? I mean, it was who's next on the list?
They went through all these quarterbacks, and their best player all those years was Joe Thomas, who was their left tackle.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just unbelievable.
So taking it a step further back from even just the draft experience and talking a little bit about the college experience, because we talked a lot about how to identify these top players and what we're evaluating. The NFL is pretty unique in that there is no minor league. There's no G League for the NFL. It is college football. And so, to your point, colleges aren't running pro-style offenses. Do you guys think that college football is the right venue for minor league, for what has become the de facto minor league football?
Oh, man, that's a great question.
I got you guys a little drunk first. So.
Yeah, you did. Yeah, so we'll be slurring having this conversation. Look, I've always looked at the college football level as being the minor leagues. Honestly, I have, and I know there's been a lot of guys that have played in heck, Tyler, you played in
all of them,
right? And you end up making it to the NFL. But I've always looked at the college football level as, it's the breeding ground for what you have in the NFL, similar to the AA, single A, triple A in baseball, right? That's where you feed off everything, and it's because of this. It's because of all the if I could call them like the D leagues or the leagues that have the XFLs and the leagues that have come out. They've always been competitive with the NFL, and the NFL is going to smash those leagues. They just are.
Yeah.
So their breeding ground, the NFL is determined, who controls everything, the NFL can control everything, has determined that the college football level, because they're not in competition, will be their breeding ground. And I've always felt like, hey, there's the opportunity. And there's something about the college football game. Like, go through the process.
Sure.
Go through
It's the most exciting game.
It's the most
hands down.
man.
NFL
Give me
games
some
don't
of
go
that,
to triple
Joe.
overtime.
Man, I'm telling you,
They don't go to triple overtime.
It is the
You're
most
not starting on the
exciting.
25.
I will watch a college football game before I watch an NFL game.
Yep.
And that's how I feel
blasphemy.
about it.
But
It's the truth, man.
I'm going to peel back that layer a lot, but I do want to hear from Tyler because you played in a lot of leagues outside of college before getting to the NFL.
Yeah, so it's set up as a funnel, right? You said the 1% of the athletes in high school go to college, and the 1% of college go to the NFL, and it's set up that way. But every once in a while, you get the Cameron Wakes, right? They get missed. You go up and play in British Columbia, and now he has 98 sacks in the 2010s. I mean, literally second behind. Was it Von Miller? I think Von Miller's the only one that has more sacks than him. I mean, above J.J. Watt. I mean, crazy. Okay, here we go. But yes. So I think that there are more guys that slip through the cracks. Because think about if anybody played high school football. In junior high, if you play with a team, you had the studs, right? But there's guys that don't mature till their junior or senior year.
Sure.
Maturation doesn't necessarily stop at 18. Like, guys are still growing up. Maturity still happens. And it could take, for example, had I gone to the NFL at 22 when I graduated college, there's no way I would have lasted 6 years in the NFL. No way. Because I had to grow up. I had to go through certain processes to prepare myself to be ready for that level. I had to play in the CFL. I had to play in the Arena League and live off of Subway sandwiches for 3 months.
That's not a bad life. Subway sandwiches are pretty great. And they're not even sponsoring this.
A little grilled chicken sandwich is okay. It's okay. But and I had to play in the UFL. Right. So I do see the value in those. The challenge is, like Darren said, is they become competition because they're not falling in line, right? The XFL tried this last year, playing in the spring, being in a supplemental league, but we as a country have an attention span that's very short. Like football is so violent and intense, we can really take it for 6 months. We can't take it for 9 months, for 10 months. So the challenge is okay, there's a need for it in the spring because now that develops talent, guys that are ready, and now that's a farm system. But the problem is how do you fund it? And the NFL's not going to do it. They're not going to put their money into it. That's why they squashed NFL Europe. So how do you fund it when the attention span, the advertising dollars, the money associated with it is not there? I mean, hopefully The Rock can change that just because he's a juggernaut. He's a juggernaut, right? So hopefully he can do that with the XFL. But there is a need because there are so many guys. I mean, think about it. Warren Moon started in Canada. Jeff Garcia started in Canada. I could go down the list. Kurt Warner. Yeah. So, I mean, think about how many guys that were great players that just slipped through the cracks because scouts can only see so many schools. Right. So,
but I guess the ownership of the teams, I know. I guess how does it work with the ownership of the teams versus the NFL as an organization? Because if I'm a team owner, I'd almost be in favor of a minor league NFL that's owned by it, right? It costs a little bit of money, but to your point, nobody's running pro-style offenses. You're not getting a good look at these players. Tyler, to your point, people develop at certain times, but you're playing under NCAA regulations.
Yeah.
So you can't transfer schools. Even if you're a breakout stud, a coach can't see you play in the SEC because you can't transfer to the SEC.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean,
they're putting the burden on academic institutions who are like, why are we doing football sometimes? I mean, it's a revenue generator for them, but their job's to educate
So I think of it from a
students.
military perspective, right? Like sometimes, right, before you go to the academy, you've got to go to a prep school, and they train you and get you ready because here's the reality: whether you come from college to the NFL, you're not ready either way. Like you're just thrown into the fire, and you better make it. Right? There's not the education. There's not the transition, the time to transition. I mean, I think if there's a farm league that each team has a farm league associated with it, and okay, you get drafted, you start in the spring, and you run through it. But there's an emphasis on making the transition not as drastic because going from, for me, $495 a month on scholarship check, and then the guys that in my class, $495, I was rich, bro. Awesome. I was rich. canned chicken. I wasn't canned tuna. I was canned chicken because I was rich. Right. But those guys and then now making game checks at a league minimum of $20,000 a week, right? Like there's a huge jump to that. So if you've got a farm system, so now not only guys can they transition to the game, learn the system, learn the skills that the NFL requires, but also now to handle and how to process life as an adult. Because now, there's financial education. We're going to coach you through managing like social life, managing relationships, managing family, managing all these things. I mean, to me, it would help the players. Do I think it's a reality? No chance. It'll never happen. It'll never happen.
NFL's got too much
power.
No way.
Exactly. And it's because, like, who's going to fund the league? Who's going to fund the league? It's going to have to be the owners. And this is not like D-League basketball where you have 12, 13, 14 guys. You're talking about
it's a whole nother league.
A roster.
Right.
You're talking about 50-some players, right?
Yeah.
So, if you're at the owners are right now nitpicking preseason games. Right? They're trying to add another game for 17 to pad their own pockets, right?
They did.
They are not going to source another league. I mean, you may get a couple of owners that might buy into the fact of, let's.
But it's not worth it for the talent discovery.
No, it's not.
No. Well, and that's preseason is really the case in point is nobody cares about the preseason.
Yeah.
Outside of the Hall of Fame game, people tune in a little bit, and then maybe the third preseason game, but nobody cares.
And so they make their money on ticket sales, right?
Yes.
The NFL is unique in the sense that revenue is split equally from TV rights.
Yeah.
So that's why they want the preseason games, is because they'll sell some more tickets. That'll boost their numbers.
Yeah.
So
Eric,
I hate to break up preseason talk. But
but it was so boring that you just had to, and you didn't care about preseason.
Hey, it took a dark turn.
Yeah, it did.
But the virtual people are saying, what's the next wine?
All right, we're on to the next wine. So this is a wine that you can actually drink side by side with the rosé that we skipped over, and the reason why you can do that is because they're both Sangiovese grapes. It's important to remember with rosé is not a grape. Rosé is a style of winemaking. He'll be back. Don't worry. We're getting to the heavy reds.
By the way, Darren just had a birthday on Sunday.
Oh, yeah. I heard about that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
You're
I know
27, right?
I know he looks 27. I mean, he looks good, but he's actually 63. So let's all sing him a 63rd birthday
we'll
song
wish him a happy
when he gets
63rd.
back.
Oh, to be that young.
Oh, no, I opened the wrong one.
No, so you can open either. Because they're made from the same grape. The grape that's used to make this Sangiovese red wine is the same grape that's used to make the Sangiovese rosé. Rosé is just a different style of winemaking, but we went from one pizza wine to the second pizza wine because people here are getting hungry. They got some food coming in, and we want something that's as pairable as possible. This is the Mr. B Sangiovese. Mr. B is one of our best labels, our best brands. Everyone likes dogs. If you don't like dogs, I hope you like cats because you need some love in your life. But Sangiovese is one of the most storied and treasured grapes in all of Italy and all of the world of wine. In Italy, it is their most treasured grape. It's the base grape behind Chianti. So anyone who's ever had Chianti, that's 80% Sangiovese, 20% whatever else they want to blend into it. The reason why you've heard it called Chianti is the old world of winemaking believed in showcasing the best wine that a region can make. So all of their wines are named after where they're from. Chianti is a region, Bordeaux is a region, Burgundy is a region. These are all blends of wine. They never really used single varietal wines for a very long time. There were some exceptions, Pinot Noir being the main one. But it wasn't until the United States really came onto the scene in the 1950s, 1960s, and realized we don't have sexy names like Chianti here, and that Sonoma just didn't quite sound quite as good, that we started doing single varietal wines. And that's where you get this single varietal Sangiovese. This is going to be different from a Chianti. You're going to get a lot of rich notes of vanilla. You're going to get a little bit of nutmeg. And it's one climate as the Chianti region. And we can blend in about 20% of what we want. But this is 100% pure Sangiovese. This is going to go even better with your steak. It's got a little bit more body. You can't chill this one down quite as much. You can still throw an ice cube in it. Still should be 63 degrees. But don't drink this one ice cold. Sit back and relax. This is going to be an absolutely fantastic wine.
Did you say that you think the Sangiovese is better with the steak than like maybe a cab?
Not better than a cab. Not better than a cab. It'll be better than a Barbera. Cab, you want as much body and tannin as possible. Everyone likes to say that they don't want chemicals in their wine, right? Nobody wants additives. They don't want chemicals. The reality is that wine is a chemical reaction happening every second. There are chemicals in there. There's chemicals in the dirt. There's chemicals in the ground. We don't add anything to this wine. This was pressed, this was fermented, and it was bottled. We added nothing to it. But the chemical reactions that occur all the time is what makes wine special. And Eric, to your question, cab and steak, that's a chemical reaction. Tannin cuts through fat. The fat in the steak, it cuts straight through it, and it creates this really nice, smooth feeling. That's why they pair so well together, as they're chemically connected. Ooh. We just got served dinner.
Come on.
Speaking of pairing wine with food, let's go.
What do we have here?
Cauliflower and some risotto balls or something.
Risotto balls.
You know
Lobster mac and cheese balls. We don't even have plates.
We need some
but
plates.
Oh, okay, fine.
yeah, we can go get it with the plates. But so enjoy the Sangiovese.
It's good too.
This is gonna be a great wine. It's a really approachable one. If you ever see Chianti at the grocery stores, pick it up. You really can't go wrong. And if you see California Sangiovese, it is one of the best grapes that is rarely produced in California. But for no apparent reason.
Where in California does it grow best?
Paso Robles is probably the best region for it. Yeah, Paso is one of my favorite wine regions.
So two Californians here connecting here, and so we're in Texas right now. Typically, people look at you sideways when you say you're from California.
It's true, especially
but when
now.
we're talking about wine, then it's like, oh, they know what they're talking about.
Oh yeah. Well, Paso Robles, they're the outlaws of winemaking.
Yeah.
So it was originally settled by people on the lam from the law, and they didn't ask questions. You show up in Paso, you're a member of the family, you're a member of the community. They instilled that spirit in their winemaking going forward. They try crazy things. They've planted every grape variety they possibly can from Europe. Whereas Napa Valley, you've got Cabernet Sauvignon, Chardonnay. That's about it. They'll dabble a little bit here and there. Paso's like, screw that. They do that well. We're going to try and find our own identity. And it's interesting to see Texas winemaking actually try and shift to do that same thing, because Texas has got some great wine growing regions, but they made a huge mistake when they first planted vineyards here, because they just saw what they were doing in Napa and said, okay, we'll plant Cabernet Sauvignon.
Yeah.
And they're like, it sells well there. It'll grow well here. No.
Too hot.
Way, way, way too hot. Yeah. You need the cool nights. So California's special because it's got brutally hot days and ice cold nights. Drops to 30 at night and it cools the grapes right off.
So what grows here? I mean, in Texas?
Spanish varietals. Tempranillo is going to grow really, really well. I think that's going to be one of the main grapes that grows here in Texas. That's done really well. Grenache can also grow really well. But they need to look to Spain. And essentially, if you look on a map and you just draw your finger sideways, whatever they're making that region that your finger hits, you can grow in your region most likely. So they're getting around to it, and it's getting a lot better very quickly, which is really
and so
exciting
is
to
this
see.
like the Fredericksburg area? I mean, what are the areas, or West Texas are we looking at?
Well, you got a couple of places, right? You got the High Plains, and then you got outside of Austin's doing a lot of really cool stuff, and so it's going to vary depending on where you go. Fredericksburg is probably going to be the best region that comes out of Texas. West Texas is a little bit too extreme. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens as weather continues to change and as climate change continues to affect both Texas and California. Because it's getting too hot in California, and it's getting too cold in Texas. I mean, that snow that hit Austin ruined vineyards. You can't have frost. You can't have snow. Happened again in France, actually, this year. You're going to see very little French 2021 wine because they got hit with hail and snow and horrible weather when the leaves had sprouted. And I think a lot of people forget that this is an agricultural product, right? This is farmers out there working the land, making sure that they can grow an excellent product and then turn it into a beautiful wine. It's not vodka. You can't just make it chemically in a lab and then send it out to everybody, though I appreciate them for doing that. And I guess they use potatoes, but it is a lot more complicated, and it's super, super versatile in terms of what happens and what can affect it. So,
Another virtual question, if you don't mind.
Let's do it.
All right.
Let's let these guys eat for a second.
No, negative. I'm joking.
Never mind, back to work. I get to eat.
While you're eating, ponder this question. how is it that when coaches, view how they do their jobs, and they step on a table and they stomp down for you, or them and the scout are both in the room vying for you. And then the very next year, you have a totally different coaching staff come in.
There's
How does that affect your career? How does that affect your trajectory? Is it really that big a difference?
Yes. Huge difference. Because once the guy who's backed you is gone, you're free, you're bait. And you're in the open now. Because when you have that transition of a new scouts or new coaching staff that comes in, they're going to judge you off of the product that they see on film. Because they're going to come in, they're going to watch film. And they're going to ask questions. And those questions are going to be to the training staff. They're going to be the equipment guys. They're going to be to everyone that you can imagine. And then they're going to watch and break down every play. That's the one thing about the NFL is you are criticized on everything you do, because it's not just game day. It's the week of practice. It's Monday. It's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, every single day. So that coaching staff is going to have access to all the film, and they're going to get to see you and get to know you. And if they feel like you cannot play, you're gone. That's just they're not going to hold on to you.
Yeah, that the NFL not for long. A lot of that does have to do with different staffs coming through, right? Especially you look at the Jaguars, you look at the Jets. Someone that can't keep a staff for a long time. The challenge is a new staff comes in. Their immediate tendency is to say, okay, I'm going to go with what I know and who I know. So they bring in the staff that they know, and they bring in players that they know. So if you don't fit that, then you are now being evaluated. So now you're going through that draft process essentially all over again with a new staff, because I don't know him, I don't have any ties with him, and I'm not going to stand up for him over my job, right? Because everybody, and one of the pieces of advice I got literally first day in an NFL locker room, I was with the Cleveland Browns, and there was a linebacker that came up to me, and he goes, "Hey," he called me Snowflake because I had blonde hair, and he goes, "Hey, Snowflake."
It means something different now.
Yeah. He goes, "Hey, just make sure when we get out at practice today." And by the way, it was like 10 degrees, snow on the ground in Berea, Ohio, freezing, miserable. And he goes, "If you go hard today, I'm gonna beat your ass after practice." And he was a big dude, right? And I'm like, this is my first time in the locker room. I'm like, what? What did I do to you? And Joe Thomas, who we mentioned earlier, was sitting next to me, and he says, "Hey," after he walked off, he goes, "Hey, look, is he gonna put food on your family's table? If you get cut, is he gonna pay you? Is he gonna give you money? You got to do what you got to do." Same with coaches. Same with scouts, same with everybody. It's about their family and what do they have to do, and that's what decisions are made. So it is a challenge for it. But here's the guys that have longevity. The guys that at the core do things right. They're the first ones in. They pour into other players. They contribute. They do things that they're not asked to do on the team. Like Darren played special teams for how many years did you play special teams?
My entire career.
That never happens. Never happens. Not now, at least. So someone that is an all-pro, future Hall of Famer to play special teams through his entire career, those are the guys that very quickly a new staff sees and like, okay, I trust that guy because he's all in and he's going to sell out for this team. The team is more important than him as an individual. Whether you may be working as an individual, like I'm going to give everything I can for my family, but when you put the benefit of the team and the sacrifice that you make to your body, that's what provides longevity, and that's what sustains. I look at I guess he's been with Belichick for a long time, but like Matthew Slater in New England, right?
Yeah.
He's been a special teams guy. He's been a role player his entire career.
He's been trusted,
because he sells out for the team, and that's what overrides talent. That's what overrides relationship. If you're going to sell out for the team, and I can see that guy's going to have my back as a head coach or a position coach because he's going to sell out every day, I'll back him.
Yeah, unless you're a freak.
Yeah, that's true.
Like, seriously,
that's true.
Like, if you're a freak, then they'll put up with you
no matter what.
And they will deal with you.
There's a weird amount of put upness that
Yes.
they'll put up
Yeah.
with freak athletes.
Yeah, well,
I'll be honest with
I
you.
give it time. Like, yeah, Dion, Antonio Brown.
Yep.
Greg,
like the
Greg
Steelers-
Hardy.
Just signed a new contract.
Exactly,
Yep.
Antonio Brown.
get him?
Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, they did.
Good for
6
them.
point something.
They
So.
went 22 for 22. The
Yeah.
whole team's back.
Good for
But
them.
understandable. Like
Right.
I've seen that. Randy Moss was a guy who showed up late, didn't come into practice at Minnesota, but on game day he was a freak. So they just put up with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it does. It does. It does.
We got an audience question. All right, what is the main? And make sure you repeat it so that people online.
Well, let's go back to that. He just said kill morale. I love that.
So, when it comes to the draft and how early you start tracking players, in football, is there a time frame or an age group where you kind of really start tracking upcoming players in any position? And then on the kind of from Darren's side, and then also Tyler from your side, is there more of a because I love both your stories from how you got drafted, and obviously both of you guys are studs to make it to that level. But is there also something like what the A's did in football, where there's kind of a numbers?
The Moneyball perspective.
Exactly. Is there two different kind of positions from that? How you track a player coming up?
Yeah, so the question was is when do you start tracking players? What's the process? And is there a formula essentially to like really kind of analyze talent? I think if you ask any Texas parent that has an athlete, they start tracking them apparently at 6 years old. So apparently you get scholarships in Texas in flag football
Early on.
But I don't know. I mean that's a good question. I don't
No.
think there's like a Moneyball formula because the difference is baseball in that example is that it's not a contact sport. So there in football there's an element of willpower and just sheer strength that can overcome a lot of things and a lot of statistics. So if you've got a D tackle like Aaron Donald going against a rookie left guard, like it doesn't matter what how many successful blocks that kid had in college, he's going to get beat by Aaron Donald just because like it's totally different. But I don't know. That's
So are you asking the question of when they start tracking them in college? Like what year?
Or in high school.
In high school.
Or
I don't
Look,
think pro scouts.
Hey, look, I'm telling you, it's out there now. Like the guys
at the pro level.
Yeah, at the pro level. At the pro level, it's in the years past. It's normally been the pro scouts are going to go to your college, right? Let's say it's University of Alabama. They show up at the University of Alabama and they're looking at certain people. Well, they're not blind at practice when they see a freshman or a sophomore and they look at this kid and go, "Geez," or the coach walks up to him and says, "Hey, man, look, I know you're out here looking at, so and so, but that dude, he's gonna be a freak, and watch out." So your eyes automatically, as a scout's, gonna go to that guy. I'm very close friends with a number of scouts throughout the league who will tell you all day long. They'll come back and they'll say, "Hey, look, we went and scouted so and so, but we saw this other kid who was a freshman, and he's gonna be someone to deal with at some point, right?" Burrow was a guy at Ohio State that I had buddies come back and say, "Hey, man, I know this guy's the guy, but Burrow is going to be the dude at some point." So it's just human nature to see talent for what it is when you show up on campus. So I think they start early on and they slot those guys. They start to come back and they say, "Hey, all right, we're looking at so and so for the draft this year, but hey, let's put this guy on the board because he's coming."
So what I think it more it's looking back to those dates as they do the evaluation and they say, okay, we're going to go back to the 7-on-7 coach. We're the elite 11 camp. We're going to go back and ask those guys. The challenge is just the process, right? It's not like basketball used to be and baseball used to be getting drafted right out of high school. So I got to get in early, or college recruiting like Nick Saban going and offering an 8th grader a scholarship. It's different because they still have to go through those 3 years before they're eligible to be drafted. So now it's like, okay, I can invest all this time into a guy that's 17 years old in high school, but it's going to be a 1 in 32 chance that I'm actually going to be able to draft him.
Yeah.
So there's a process aspect of it. Now, I mean, like I said, it's more like a regressive. Like I'm going to work backwards when I go through the evaluation. Okay, what kind of kid was he in 8th grade? What kind of kid was he as a freshman? What kind of kid was he with this 7-on-7?
Yeah.
In football, it's just different. It's a little bit
It,
different.
you know what? It's different. I'll say this, and I know we got to move on to the next one, but it's different in the fact of when you look at baseball, there's a lot of club baseball, right? So you get kids that are playing at a young age, and they travel all over the country. Perfect game to be exact. And college baseball scouts and pro scouts can watch these baseball players at a young age. Trust me, I got one that's gone through the system, right?
Yeah, you
and
too, right?
And well, actually, end up long story. Anyway, so I've watched these guys, watch these pro scouts at a young age go to club games. Basketball's the same way.
Yep.
They play all over the country, and they play all over the world actually, and they have this access. These scouts have access to these kids at a young age. It hasn't been until the last 5 years actually that in the NFL you can actually see 7-on-7 at a young age. Mm-hmm. And now it's become its own little club system within football. Is you're seeing guys playing 7-on-7 leagues throughout the country, and now I can lay eyes on you. Now I can sort of see you. But like Tyler said, it's still a process. You still got to go to college. Mm-hmm. You still got to get those 3 years in, however you do it, and then I have time to assess you through that process.
All right, well, we're going to pour another one really quickly, and then we're going to go back to Dan about morale because that was a great question. Yeah. And so we're going to go a little quick. I actually already introduced this wine. We're going to go with the second Game Theory wine that's in this kit. And this is our Game Theory Tempranillo. And we're now losing member number 2. I mean, they're dropping like flies.
You can't hold water around it. His young self.
Hey, 80% water, right?
80% water, exactly. So we're going to go into Tempranillo. And Tempranillo is what Texas is going to be known for. This is going to be Texas wine. They grow amazing. It grows amazingly well in hot regions, and this actually comes from the Lodi region in California. Now, Lodi for a long time was making some low-quality wine for high-volume producers.
Where's Lodi?
So Lodi is. Do you know where Tahoe is?
Yes.
It's kind of by Tahoe. It's a little bit more inland from Tahoe. It's very inland. It's not coastal at all. It's 110 degrees during the day and then cold at night. So yeah, it's close to Fresno. It's close to where Tyler is. Yeah. And they've just stood out at making the best hot climate grapes in California. Because when you got that heat, your grapes ripen a lot more. They get a lot more sugar. And when you make wine, you take sugar, you add yeast, and you get alcohol and carbon dioxide. That's the fermentation process. So the more sugar you have to start with, the more alcohol you have to finish with. So all of their wines are going to be really big. They're going to be 15% alcohol by volume, so really heavy, high alcohol wines, and they're going to be absolutely delicious. Now, we are not the best Tempranillo region in the world. That is Rioja, Spain.
Okay.
In Rioja, the Rioja region has to be 100% Tempranillo, but it also has to be aged for 4 years. Government regulation. They will not let you release a Rioja if it hasn't been aged for a certain amount of time.
Okay.
But the government also pays them to do that. So as a result, if you're in the United States, you get really cheap, really affordable aged red wine. You can get a 2014 Rioja for $20. It's a 7-year-old wine, right? Imagine the company that has to make a product and they sell it 7 years from now. That's a tough business model.
Right.
So ours are going to be a little bit younger. They're going to go great with some of the food that's on the table because it's going to be a little bit more tannin. It's going to be a little bit more body, and you're going to want something with fat, whether you got cheese. I see they got some charcuterie still on their plates. That's going to go perfect with our Tempranillo, and we're going to dive right into it, and then I'm going to dive right back into you because we got Dan's question about morale.
Wow.
I got a million questions going back to the college days, but let's start on morale while Tyler's gone.
The top tier players get treated with a level of respect. The rest of the players don't. That's got to kill the rest of the team.
Yeah, well, look, I mean, the NFL, the dynamics in the locker room are a little different. They really are. Listen, I've been in corporate America for the last 10 years, and I've sort of seen like, okay, I get it. Like, but in the NFL, it's a lot different because let's just think about it. Your window of opportunity to win a championship is really small. So what's the key? I'm trying to get as many dogs as I can on my team, right? And if I get a guy like Antonio Brown, who arguably for the last 8 years could possibly be the best wide receiver in football, right? 1, 2, or 3, however you rank him, right? But he's a huge problem. But my job is on the line every week. I have a 16-game regular season. If Antonio Brown does not play and we lose, because I'm measured by wins and losses, and we lose because he's not out on that field, and I understand the morale deal and people, talk about culture and all that, but I'm selfish in the fact that I want my dogs out on the field. I don't care if he was late for a meeting. When he shows up Sunday, he's going to walk in, he's going to be playing his headphones, listening to some rap music, and he's going to walk out there, and he's going to give me two touchdowns. I keep my job. And it's selfish. It's selfish in the fact, but it is about job security. So what happens with a guy like Antonio Brown when he's like this, and I can handle the fact that he's missing meetings and he's showing up late and he's doing all these things, I can deal with that. But when he starts to go like that, then I'm not putting up with it. And that's exactly what Mike Tomlin ended up saying. When his play stops, being as important as missing all these meetings and all that, then it's time to get rid of it. And that's exactly what they did. No.
That's what I was about to ask.
He's a different monster.
So the question.
But he's a different. Wait.
Yeah. So the question is, does Bill Belichick do that same thing? And to extrapolate on there, are there other coaches? Because that is a relatively short-term way of thinking by a coach,
right?
Which goes back to the owner of the team having faith in a coach to be able to build a team long-term. And I'm guessing if you build a team long-term, morale in the locker room is actually pretty important.
It is so long-term.
But does Belichick do that, and are there other coaches who don't do that?
I played with Bill Belichick's mentor, and that was Bill Parcells.
Yep.
And Bill Parcells will tell you one thing. All players are not treated equal.
Yep.
Just not. If my starting quarterback walks in to the meeting late, hey, I got to deal with it. It is what it is. Like I might say something to him, and we're talking about how players are treated. You know where we're going.
I'm caught up. This is why I came sprinting back in.
But if so-and-so, my third team safety shows up late and he's a special teamer, I may cut him. Same thing that Jimmy Johnson how he used to treat us the same way. And he used to say the exact same thing. I don't treat everyone the same. If you bring me value on Sunday, you will play.
Yeah.
And it was just a hard lesson to learn, but it was the reality of those situations because, again, unlike a business where you want to be in that process of in a business as a business owner, which I am, I want to treat people like, hey, listen, if you're late, then there's repercussions for those situations. But in the NFL, it's such a short window of time that you can't afford not to have your prized possession, your prized commodity on that field. Because if you lose the game, guess who they're going to blame? You.
But that bleeds into the business world as well.
Yeah,
and we've seen it bleed into the business world quite a bit in the last 10 years. And you look at a lot of Silicon Valley companies who've gotten in trouble, and it's because that type of, I guess, leniency towards high performers has started to be accepted. And it gets shut down really quickly in the business world. And so, kind of to Dan's point, to Steve's question, are there teams who have done this well and they have shut down those high-performing players because they're thinking long-term, they're thinking about the organization and the image with their fans, and they're not just focusing on wins and losses in that immediate near-term future?
Yeah, I'm sure there are. But everybody always says, I want to say this, though, because I think it's the biggest misnomer out there. Like Bill Belichick runs his team this way. It doesn't matter. He's going to treat everybody the same. He does not.
Oh, no way Tom Brady doesn't get preferential treatment.
One example, Gronk.
Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah, that's a
I
good
mean,
point.
I know, and I love him, but the things that he got away with, nobody else on the team was going to get away with.
That's right.
The question is Tomlin more even?
Tomlin had dealt with Antonio Brown all those years. This was not like it's a 1-2 year span. There was a long list of things that he did, infractions that he did, and they just forgave him because they wanted him to play on Sunday. Yeah. So it's just the reality of the sport.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's hard because if that's what you're going to apply to your team as a head coach, right? And because the head coach is tasked with being the disciplinarian. If you're gonna implement that in your team, you've got to paint a very clear picture to the young players that is what it is, right? Like if you're not on a 4-year deal worth $60 million, like your leash is really short.
Right.
And Darren's former coach, Lovie Smith, was mine in Chicago, and it was like my first week there, and he uses me as an example. And we're in a meeting. He's kind of addressing the whole team week 1, and he says, "Look, I will be fair, but I will not be equal. It's going to be fair. I am not going to hold Brian Urlacher to the same standard that I'm going to hold Tyler Clutts to." And I very quickly could have been like, "Man, what do you?" And then I'm thinking like, "Oh my gosh, you just used me in the same sentence as Brian Urlacher." I made it.
I'm here.
But it's true. But I think as if you're going to be a coach and you're going to, and it's reality. Like Darren said, it is reality. I mean, think about, we have some veterans in the room, right? If you're going to battle, you want to make sure that your best people are up front. Now, discipline creates the best soldier, right? Like there's all sorts of things that play into it, but if I know that you are going to be the best person for that spot and lives depend on it, I'm going to make sure that you're in that spot. Yeah. And I'm not comparing sports to the military. Like that, I want to be very clear. That's not what I'm doing here.
It's a leadership style. It's a leadership style. And
you have to be
telling
clear.
you up front. Telling you up front makes a huge difference.
Yeah, and I'll call out the Cowboys here. And this is very anti-me, but 2015 season was a prime example of this. We came off of 2014 in Green Bay and the catch game and the whole deal. 2015, Tony got hurt in the Philly game, and it just kind of went downhill from there. The problem with 2015 was the standard wasn't set, so the discipline was not implemented. The young guys that watched the old guys get away with stuff still got away with it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And didn't realize that I have a different expectation for me. Right. And so that was one of, in my opinion, watching it, is that unfortunately there were some veteran high profile players that took advantage of a decaying season, and the young guys latched onto that and thought that was the norm.
Yeah. And you know how a great coach handles that? A great coach handles it this way. He cuts one of those veterans.
Yes.
Just to show. Just, hey,
nobody's invaluable.
No one's invaluable.
Yep.
And he's not gonna cut that guy that's your Tony Romo, but he's gonna cut that guy that's a fringe player. Yeah, he's producing, but he's on the fence. Whatnot.
Not even
he's
that.
Expendable.
Like
I'll get rid of
him. If he's in that 6 to 15 range on the roster, right? Like the guy that like you never would think his job is in jeopardy. It just has to be somebody that like feels safe, and everyone thinks is safe. That no, he's not going to touch him because of his contract or because of whatever. You cut one of those guys wake up real quick.
Yeah, it's tough business, man. I can tell
you. You got to tell the Parcells story. That's that one.
Scorched earth process.
Yeah.
Oh, look. So Parcells, how much time we got?
We got it.
You got all the time you want.
Okay.
If you keep drinking, we'll do this one.
Yeah, we need another round for everybody.
We got the wine. Yeah, wine's on us. We'll take care of that.
So Parcells comes in as the new head coach. He takes the job. I'm in Phoenix with my family, and he calls me personally as the captain of the defense. He calls me up and he says, "Hey, I want you to come to Dallas, and I want to meet with you." And I said, "Okay, well, all right, I'm here for another week and a half, and I'll come." He said, "No. Tomorrow we have a meeting. I want you here, and I need to see you in person." I'm like, "All right, well, Coach, I'm not here in Dallas. I'm in Phoenix." He says, "Okay, I'll see you tomorrow." And blah, blah. So I get off the phone. I'm like, I got to figure out, I got to get back. He's going to cut me, right? That's my mind. It's like, oh, I'm getting cut. So I get on the plane, fly back to Dallas, meet with Coach Parcells, walk in the office, and he says, "Hey, you're safe. Don't worry about it. I know you thought that." He's like, "You're okay." But he asked me one thing. He says, "Have you ever heard of the scorched earth process?" And I said, "Nope. Never heard of that. Scorched earth process. Have you ever heard of the scorched earth process?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, let me tell you. all the viruses that have been around this organization for a number of years are gone. I'm burning it. I'm burning the grass. I'm burning all the things that you felt were viruses around here, whether it be equipment staff, the training staff, players. I'm killing it. And I sat there and I was like, okay, that's different. And it's because of it's because of what we had gone through for years. For 3 straight years, we went 5-11. And what we dealt with were players that every day showed up late, that were never disciplined, guys that didn't really believe in the game, just wanted to be a Dallas Cowboy, and that was enough. Showed up late, left early. I was bailing guys out of jail as a captain. Like, those are the type of the things that Parcells said, no, I got this. You just show up and play. I'll handle the rest. So when that happened, everything changed. And it was like the weight of the world lifted off of me, because I wasn't begging guys to show up for meetings or to stay late or to watch a little extra film. He took care of all of that. And I'm telling you, as a leader, I couldn't appreciate the man that much more, because he understood what he wanted. He set the pace. He set the cadence of where we needed to be. And this story goes for anybody that's a business owner. If you do not set the cadence, the prisoners will run the asylum. Absolutely. And he said it early on. So that's, kudos to Parcells and who he was.
That was great.
Yeah.
Well, he invested in you. He invested in the people who were showing up every single day. And that's the most important thing that you can do as a leader of any organization, business or not. Invest in the people who put in the hours.
Yeah. Right. And I think taking ownership too was part of it. He took ownership for it. Yeah. 100%. And he stepped into that leadership role and took ownership, but not only that, the expectations and goals were clear.
Yeah.
Like, there was no question. Like, and if you forgot maybe what it was, very quickly you learned. If you show up late to a meeting,
you're
sorry.
not doing it again.
You know what it really showed me, what it really taught me was that, and you've heard me talk about it before in the past, but you can have all these strategies, you can have all these things that you, in this focus of what you want to get accomplished and whatnot, but men follow men. Like, they don't follow the strategy and, the game plan and all this. They're going to follow you. If you're doing it the right way and you're disciplined, that's who they're going to follow you. They don't care about all what the X's and O's and what you're doing. If you are consistently consistent, they will follow.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Could not agree more.
Yeah.
Eric, I think we got a question.
We got a couple VIP questions from the back.
All right, let's hear them.
And the first one's from Tiffany Woodson. Is that what it is? Okay.
Really?
Wow.
All right, turn off our mic.
You're gonna have to. Joe, you're gonna have to repeat said question, please.
I got you. Yes.
Okay, question for Darren and Tyler. By the way, I did a podcast with Tyler's wife yesterday, and Tyler, you are a lucky man.
Ooh.
That is true.
So I want to know both of your varying opinions on.
We got some more ones over here too.
There's a lot of parents in the room. How you feel about your children playing football?
Oh, that's a great question.
Joe, can you repeat the question?
It was a setup, Darren.
That is a setup.
That was a setup.
Hey,
That was a setup if I've ever heard a setup.
we couldn't hear you.
The question.
Sorry, I don't have any
Well, we couldn't hear
service
you.
here.
The question to both of the gentlemen over here is, as parents, how do you feel about your children playing football? I get to turn off my mic and just do nothing here.
All right, so I'll speak for myself. I think I played for 27 years, and as much as the game took out of me, I got more out of the game. I think I came out on top. What it taught me from a leadership perspective, what it taught me from a servant perspective. I mean, there's so many things that I learned from the game that carry over. I think the game is different today than it was. I mean, for sure, obviously, like leather helmets when this guy played, but it's changed a lot since I've played. And I mean, Darren, if you played in today's NFL when you were here, you would have been fined or suspended every single game.
Yeah.
You couldn't because of the violence that he played with,
Yeah.
and that's the reality. The game has changed, and I think that there's platforms out there that are seeing that, because the attendance or the participation in the game of football is way down, and I don't know if the NFL sees it, really, because what's going to happen is it's not going to affect us in 3, 5, 7 years, but 10, 15 years, the game and talent level is going to look very, very different. So the game of football is under attack. It really is. And we're bleeding out slowly, and it starts at 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, and kids that are now opting for other sports because it's dangerous and their parents don't want them to play. Do I think that 8-year-olds and 10-year-olds need to play tackle football? I don't. I think that you can learn the game in other avenues, and there's other avenues. There's a new brand called Flex Football, where it's a hybrid between flag football and tackle football. It's limited contact. It teaches you to play with your feet and your hands and not your head. It gives you a soft shell helmet, and it keeps your head out of it. So it's teaching kids to play with proper, safe technique while still keeping you involved in the game and progressing. But I do. The reality is the game is going to continue to look very different over the years because of the awareness to brain injuries, and I mean, I think that there's other ailments that come from football that are going to really kind of deter people from playing the game. But as a parent, I would encourage my child to play football, because again, I think you get as much out of that game as it'll ever get out of you.
That was an inside question too.
Y'all had that conversation last night.
We have had this conversation, and she had to do it in front of folks. As we would say in Texas, you had to do it in front of folks, because this is a conversation that is taking place in our household many a times.
It is.
It is. It's an important one.
I think we get asked anytime we speak anywhere. I think that's the normal
Would you
question.
allow your kids to play? Look, I'm of the firm belief of, if my son or daughter is passionate about something, I'm going to support it. I don't care what it is. If they love it and it's morally correct, I'm going to support it. And because it's hard to find passion with kids today, because there's all these other outside influences that are out there, and we all know that. So if they're passionate about it, then I want to support it. Now, I agree with Tyler in the fact of, I played football. I started my first year in football at 7 years old. And do I believe that kids should start playing tackle football at that age? No. I mean, there's flag football, there's flex football, there's so many other options, and kids don't know how to tackle at that age. They can't even control their heads at that age. So I can't
put that helmet on.
I couldn't even hold my head at 27, 28 years old. So, but I would say, look, allow them to learn the game, understand the game, and if they're still passionate about it in their junior high, 7th grade, 8th grade, then yes, go ahead. Look, play tackle football. But my son Jaden, who's 20 years old now, asked me the same thing. So he came to me and he said he was 12 years old, and he said, "Hey, Dad, I want to play football." And then years before, he played flag football here and there, but he was mostly a baseball, basketball guy. And he said, "Would you allow me to play?" Actually, he was 11. He said, "Would you allow me to play football?" And I said, "Well, why are you asking me?" And he said, "Because I'm not sure if this is what you want me to do, because I hear a lot of my friends, mothers and fathers won't allow them to play." And I said, "Look, son, if you want to play, then play." And he said, "I'm glad you said that." And this is a true conversation. He said, "I'm glad you say that, because you would be a hypocrite if you told me anything else." And it's so true, because I knew where my passion lied. I knew what kept me off the street. I knew what kept me away from drugs. I knew it kept me away from doing the wrong thing, and it was the game of football. And it built so much leadership qualities, so many other little things, like get your butt kicked, get up. And you can't teach those qualities. I felt like those qualities came because of the game of football, and I think those are the same qualities that he could have learned and that he did learn through his process of playing football.
I think that was the best possible answers possible.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's
More wine.
incredibly insightful for both of you, and yeah, you definitely need more wine after that. But seriously, both of you clearly thought this out, and after playing the game and seeing what's happened, and
I got a question,
really
Joe.
thinking about it. Yeah.
I got a question.
All right, throw me under the bus.
Hey, babe. Did you hear that? Linda Polk over here clapped. I won that argument. That argument is won. That's it. Ding, me, win. All about the W's.
Bobby did play tackle football in second grade.
See?
You
Oh,
did too.
right?
You did too.
Yeah.
No, it happens all the time. I think, Tyler, you summed it up perfectly, right? It did a lot of good for you, did more good than harm for you, and it's impossible to fully see what the good and what the harm is going to be in anything long term. And, Darren, to your point, if you're passionate about it, don't stifle passion. Don't stifle creativity.
Yeah,
Most
and
people.
I don't want to act like I'm naive to the risks. Like I
Sure.
get it, and I think we both get it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and we felt effects. I felt effects.
Mhm.
Darren has.
Yep.
But again, one of the things that my dad at a young age, any tough decision that I had to make, you got to weigh out the pros and cons. Like, make a list. Like, what comes out on top? Like, what do you think is going to benefit you more? And go with that. And to me, I wouldn't change anything. I mean, whether they say it takes how many years off your life. I mean, I lived a really full life, so that's my opinion.
I think it's beautiful. I think it's absolutely beautiful.
We got time for one more wine, sir.
One more wine? We want one more wine?
Come on, Joe.
You guys haven't had enough?
No, Joe, we just got started.
I mean, I guess they took a quick
We'll go
they
as
took a
long
quick
as y'all are
break
here
No.
here.
Hey,
earlier
keep bringing
today.
it.
Oh, we recharged for sure.
Oh,
We're
we
ready to go.
recharged.
Trust us.
And by the way, when this is done, y'all hang out. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's going to hang out, but we'll be here hanging out tonight.
All right, so we're going to go into our heaviest red wine of the night for those of you who like big, bold red wines. We are going into a wine I'm pretty sure I can confidently say nobody in this room or online has ever had before.
Ooh.
It's the Balance of Powers Suzão. Now, Suzão is a Portuguese grape, and it's the base grape for port wine. So anytime you have port wine, a dessert wine, primarily made of Suzão, but it can make a really awesome single varietal wine by itself. It is going to be very high alcohol. This comes in at around 15.5. So it's in your face. It ages beautifully. It grows incredibly well in Lodi. It's very similar to the Tempranillo that we just had that needs a lot of heat. It wants a lot of sugar. There's going to be a little bit of residual sugar in this, so it's not just pure tannin. It's going to be tannin mixed with a little natural sugar that's left over from the grape, and that's going to kind of round the entire experience out. If you've got food on your plate, try it with anything meat-based. There's vegetarians in here. I'm so sorry. There's not very many good pairings for Suzão. It's a meat eater's wine, and it's absolutely delicious. If you're in Portugal, they grow grapes completely different than California. It's basically one main region going up and down the main river in Portugal. And on one side, they've got a lot of red wine production. On one side, they've got a lot of white wine production. And this is going to be from the hotter east bank of their main river going through the country, because it doesn't get the fog to roll in. The fog stops on the river.
Really?
And this just stays hot. You're thinking about Santa Barbara. So Dan brought up a good point. So this is a north-south river. It's a north-south valley. That's most valleys and rivers in the world. There is a section of California, so not where this one's from, unfortunately. But if you ever want to try a brand new California wine, if ever you want to visit California and go to a wine region that is the best up-and-coming wine region in all of California. It's not Napa. It's not Sonoma. It's not Monterey. It's not Paso Robles. The Santa Ynez Valley. The Santa Ynez Valley by Santa Barbara is the best hidden gem in California. First off, Santa Barbara is perfect in every aspect of how a city can be perfect.
I'll second that.
If you can afford it, go there.
Yeah, that's the question.
There's the caveat.
Yeah.
There's the caveat there. But the wine region that grows in the Santa Ynez Valley is completely unique. Because as I mentioned, this goes north-south. And as Dan very astutely pointed out, the Santa Ynez Valley is the only valley in the northern hemisphere that doesn't go north-south along fault lines, but actually goes east to west. So the mouth of the valley opens up to the Pacific Ocean. And so the fog basically rolls into this valley and blankets all the grapes every day. And it is the best cold weather growing climate in all of North America. Their Pinot Noir and their Chardonnay is, in my opinion, the best in the United States of America, including Willamette Valley, including everything. I'll take Santa Ynez any day of the week because it's just so unique. If anyone here has seen the movie Sideways, that's why they called it Sideways. It's based in Santa Ynez Valley, and the valley is sideways. That's where the name comes from, and they grow just unbelievable grapes. It's got all of the potential of Napa Valley. It's got the best food I've had in California. And I live in Los Angeles. I see, a little bit of Los Angeles culture. A lot of people who made a lot of money in Los Angeles and who decided they want to get out of Hollywood and go just spend money creating, spend a lot of money to make great restaurants and great wine. And as consumers, we can all go there because the hotels are dirt cheap and spectacular. So the question is, where is it in relation to St. Helena? It is very far south. You do not fly into San Francisco. You fly into Los Angeles. It's
Santa
L.A.
Barbara, drive through Malibu, going from L.A. up
2.5 hour
north,
drive from Los Angeles north.
through Ventura County, and then you get up into Santa Barbara, and it's amazing. It's amazing.
And the best wine growing region that is occurring right now. It's special to watch. I highly recommend it for everybody. It's the perfect vacation. And they're going to grow just spectacular grapes. You'll have the most fun you'll ever have. That's actually where the company started. We got our roots, very weirdly enough, not in the wine industry. I was telling you guys a little bit earlier.
Yeah.
Before going into wine, I was working at SpaceX. And the whole reason we started this company was back in 2016. I don't know if anyone here remembers, but SpaceX blew up a rocket on the launch pad in Florida.
Yes.
It was Facebook's rocket, by the way, so you're all welcome for that. We blew up Facebook's
So you're not
rocket.
working there because that was your fault.
That it was never proven. It was never proven. Blew up a rocket on the launch pad, and we were grounded for a year. We could not launch, and this company's just bleeding money, right? Your only source of revenue literally went up in flames. But finally, after about 8 months, we were allowed to launch again, and there is an Air Force base near Santa Barbara called Vandenberg Air Force Base.
Is that Oxnard?
Yeah, a little bit west Oxnard, yeah. And that's where we launched a lot of our rockets. So the first launch that we ever had after the Facebook explosion was at Vandenberg Air Force Base, and everyone in the company went up there because if we blew another one up, we were on the unemployment line. We could not survive another mistake. And so, we're going to drive 3 hours and watch this thing take off. Goes brilliantly, goes into orbit, lands back on the barge, an incredible experience. We're all celebrating. And I turned to my friends. I was like, guys, let's go wine tasting. We're in Santa Barbara. And a woman next to me goes, oh, my gosh, you should come to Sunstone Winery. I was like, what's Sunstone Winery? And I love giving them a shout out because they are the best winery to go to in Santa Barbara and Santa Ynez. But they essentially imported Queen Victoria's lavender factory from France and rebuilt a villa in Santa Barbara. I mean, this is the most over-the-top thing you could possibly do in wine, but they hosted us, and it was brilliant, and their wine was beautiful. And we just absolutely fell in love with them. So we kept in contact with them. And when I quit SpaceX and had to start to come up with what I was going to do next, I had fallen in love with wine. I had this idea for a wine company. And the only person I knew in the wine industry was the owner of Sunstone Bar and Rice. So I called them up, and they wrote us our first check. They were our first investor.
Awesome.
We produced our wine there for over 1.5 years. And by produced, I mean used a little hand bottling thing where we filled each bottle one at a time, and they taught us everything we know. Our winemaker was their winemaker in the past. I mean, we've got deep ties to that place, and they just do a beautiful job of making wine. So, cannot recommend San Ynez Valley more than anything. Really, it's a special place.
So I got a quick question for you.
Let's hear it.
Why In Good Taste?
Why the name or why the company?
Why the company?
So, my dad raised me on wine. I grew up in Northern California. I was born in upstate New York. What people don't realize is that there's actually more to New York State than just New York City. Ithaca, New York's where I'm from, tiny little town, but Ithaca, New York, Cornell. Ithaca is gorgeous. It's our only tagline. It's a really bad joke, but we nail it every time. It's actually a really good wine growing region. They make really spectacular sparkling wines. They make amazing Gewürztraminer, and they make a lot of Germanic wines. My parents are both physicists, so they're kind of just super nerds, and they didn't fall in love with wine because it's this romantic idea of a representation of a people and a place, and things that I absolutely love about. They're physicists. They're like, hey, this is chemically complicated. I want to figure out how to make this. And so my dad would use me as essentially free child labor, and I would stomp grapes for him, and we'd bottle our own wine. And he always taught me that quality wine had nothing to do with the price point. Never look at the price tag to find a quality wine. And that just stuck with me my entire life. And so after I had left SpaceX, I was living up in Napa, and I was working a harvest, and I was able to actually meet a lot of the vineyard owners and the winery owners who weren't the big names. They were kind of, off the main road, and they produced exceptional wine for $30 a bottle, $25 a bottle. Whereas you had wineries selling their wine for $200 a bottle that I pretended to like because I was supposed to pretend to like it, but never really felt confident in what I was drinking. It was so expensive. I didn't think I had the palate for it. So after that whole experience, I came back to Los Angeles and kind of, really wanted to make a place or make a way to change the perception of what quality wine is, and kind of help educate people that it's not price tag. It's a representation of a people, a place, the farmers who work in the fields, the winemakers who actually blend and ferment the grapes, and the hard work that they put in, not what the marketing team puts on the price tag. And so we started back in 2017, and really that was our mission from day one, is change the perception of quality wine and show people that, there, to some extent, there is a price factor involved. If you buy anything for less than $10, I can pretty much promise you it's not going to be quality. However, if you buy something for $100, it's not necessarily quality either. And so for a good price point, you can trust what you're buying. And that really spurred everything from there.
So what I love about this, because I know for me, if I go wine shopping, right here, if I look at a label or if I look at, I have no idea if I'm going to like it based off of that.
Of course.
I mean, I love my wife, but she picks movies off of the picture. Not even the trailer. She doesn't want to watch the trailer.
You
she
can judge
picture.
a book by its cover. It's completely
100%. Right, and same with wine. She goes, "Ooh, that's a cool label. Like I want to buy that."
It's a girl thing, yeah.
All right.
Not just a girl thing. I do the same
right.
thing. I've been in the wine industry.
We talked about legs earlier.
No idea.
But as I'm watching, what I love about this concept and I love about In Good Taste is that I'm not educated enough to look at something and, okay, I understand the region, I understand the year, I understand the blend, I understand all of these. I don't know enough to say, okay, hey, this is going to be something that I like, because my only experience is like, oh, my friend said this was pretty good. And what they like could be completely different than what I like. And here it's like, okay, I really get to learn glass by glass as to what it is, because it really is overwhelming. I end up walking out of the grocery store looking like an alcoholic with like 7 bottles because I'm like, I don't know what to get. Like, so I'm just going to try that one, this one, and this one.
Imagine if there was as many selections for wine as there were for tomatoes. Good luck picking the type of tomato that you actually want to buy, right?
That's right.
Like, it is analysis paralysis. It's overwhelming. And, to your point, everyone's taste is different. You just need to try a lot of things. You need to explore. You need to put yourself out there. But when you're spending $20, $25 on something that you're going to drink in one night, that's risky, right? That is a risky proposition. So the more you can make it accessible, the more you can make unique varietals, weird varietals, representative varietals of their region of the grape. That's going to be really impactful for people. And you know, a lot of the wines that we drink on a daily basis and I buy at grocery stores all the time still, they're designed to taste the exact same year after year after year after year. But that's completely counterintuitive to what wine is as a product, because it's an agricultural product. If the weather's bad one year, it's going to taste different. If there's an earthquake during fermentation, it's going to taste different. And there is an earthquake vintage in Napa for wines that were fermenting, and the earth shook, and it shook it up, and it added energy to this incredibly complicated process, and they taste completely different. If you line them up, you can actually pick it out pretty clearly. So we kind of embrace the variety of what wine should be, and we embrace that change. And none of our wines will taste the same vintage after vintage. And if you buy this kit in, you know, a year, it's going to be probably completely different grapes, completely different varietals, and completely different regions. But it doesn't have to be the same. As long as you can trust where it's coming from and trust who's making it, it's going to be a special experience.
So talk to the very new wine drinker that doesn't necessarily know, like I described earlier, it's hard to explain what I like. And even if you're talking to someone that really knows wine, like, ooh, I like that because of this. So explain next steps for In Good Taste and resources that you guys provide with sommeliers and I'm going to use a football term, coaches.
Yeah.
Right? On walking through that process. Like, not is it just a box with a bunch of different wines.
Right.
For those, I mean, if you're here watching right now, like you're somewhat at least familiar with Darren Woodson or In Good Taste. So if you're familiar with Darren Woodson and not In Good Taste, tell us a little bit like the coaching aspect that's also associated with In Good Taste.
Yeah, so we wanted to make wine tasting accessible to everybody. You should not have to book a flight, fly to Northern California, drive 2 hours north, spend $2,000 on hotels and wine tastings, try a bunch of wines, and hear from a professional. So we opened up a way for us to bring Napa Valley to your living room. So when you buy an In Good Taste variety kit, you can either enjoy it by yourself, and we include a booklet in every single kit that walks you through a guided wine tasting. But we also open up the option for you to sit down with a sommelier or a wine expert. They're not all professional sommeliers. They're people who are passionate about wine, who are trained on wine, and just want to show you a good time. And you can get a group together, and you can do a wine tasting from your own home. And the emphasis is very much on just making sure it's a fun experience.
Right.
We're going to teach you things along the way, but we are not going to tell you the brix level in the grapes before it was harvested, because I barely know what that means, and I've been doing this for a lot of years. And our winemaker, I think, barely knows what it means. I'm kidding. He's brilliant, and but he's a total scientist. He's an absolute scientist, and he's got a PhD in this. We don't need a PhD. We're going to give you very valuable information for you to understand and take when you go grocery shopping next time, and understand why, if you're going to buy a red blend from a grocery store and you're a little nervous that it might be the bottom of the barrel, that you should look for a Côte d'Aron blend or a GSM blend. And you should look for certain letters and certain phrases that will indicate that the winemaker actually put in effort. Because whatever you put on that label has to match what's in the bottle. So if they put in that extra effort, that's when you can really start to find some gems on the grocery store. So
That's awesome.
it's always available. We have open tastings all the time that you can just jump on if you don't want to schedule, or you can schedule a free one with 5 of your friends, and it's no extra cost.
And that's what's been fun about In Good Taste is, you know, the relationship that we've built, you know, together with, you know, I've known Steve and Eric for.
They look the same.
Dude,
I get
you
it.
don't have to say your name, Eric. I know your name, dude. I mean, I know I've had a number of concussions, but I'm okay. But I would say, look, it's, you know, being introduced to In Good Taste is the fun of it. Like, it's not just informative, but it's the information. It's not just the information. It's how good of a time that you have when you do the virtuals with In Good Taste, because you're learning at the same time, but you're partying at the same time.
Right.
People are taking off their clothes at the same time. Like, I'm serious. Like, it's top to bottom. It is a good. You guys don't want to say that? You don't want me to tell that?
We got a delay. We got a delay on this. We can edit that out.
No,
right?
it's the truth.
I legally can't say it. You can say whatever
But
you want.
I've seen it, so I'm gonna say it. But I mean, if you're a company that's out there that's looking to do an event, if you're, you know, if your family and friends, this is what you should be doing. Like, just to have a good time and learn at the same time about the wines, and again, man, the partnership is going to be great. I'm going to continue to grow with you guys and have fun at the same time.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. I mean, everybody likes drinking wine. It always comes back to, why do we even drink wine to begin with?
Yeah.
Right.
We want to loosen up a little bit.
Yeah.
We don't want to get called an alcoholic, right?
Yeah.
Wine, you're allowed to do whatever you want with.
That's
Wine,
true.
you can do whatever you want with.
All right, so we could definitely continue this party, but for the virtual crowd, we've got a lightning round, all right? We're going to lightning round real
Boom.
quick, all right? We've got lots of questions rolled up. I'm just going to go real quick. If you've been studying it, regardless of need, Kyle Pitts or Jamar Chase for the Cowboys?
Ooh, man, that's a good one.
What's
Some lightning round.
Hold
This
on, what's
is.
the corner's name? The kid
Patrick
from
Surtain, or
yeah,
you talking
Surtain.
about,
I like
or Joe Horn's son.
I like Surtain, to be honest. I'm gonna
Surtain?
throw a third one in there.
No. Look, if Chase is there,
Yeah.
I don't know how you pass that up.
Okay.
I'm going best athlete, right? And I know you got Amari Cooper, C.D. Lamb, but Chase is special. Like, he's a Hall of Fame type of guy. He's a transitional guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's that guy. I've watched him at LSU. Pitts is going to be a very good tight end, but Chase will win you some games.
Yeah.
Wow.
If it's between those two, I think that's a best available versus
They're not
a
going to be
need.
there. They're
right?
not going to be.
No.
I think Pitts
No.
may be there. I don't think Chase will be there.
No, I don't think so either. I don't think so.
All right, lightning round, just in general, need versus a best player.
I think Cowboys need to draft for need.
I'm the opposite.
So you're saying that if
You go get that dog. You go get the dog. CD Lamb.
I agree.
See,
Receiver.
Hey, CD
Trade
Lamb
him.
was there last year, right? They weren't looking for CD Lamb. Best player, right? You see what the quality you got. I'm going best player.
Trade your first-
hey,
trade
what
your
this
first
is
future
this is
first
this is an
rounders.
offensive game.
Yeah.
This is an offensive game. You got your quarterback coming. I do not care.
You can't
Look,
get all on the field at the same time. That's right.
yes, you can.
It's not the Steve Turner show. It's
Yeah,
the Darren
you
Woodson
figure it
show.
out. Hey, then here you go. You draft. Say you draft a guy like Chase. You have commodities now, right? Amari Cooper does not have to be on the roster. He can be traded. Like, and get you more
Yeah, call the Rams first for
Or
that
players. Or
or
players.
players. They're all commodities. I think you go. I honestly feel like you go with the best player available.
One. So I gotta ask: at any point in your guys' career, or at a specific point that you remember, did you feel like commodities versus players?
Oh,
That's a very good question.
Yes.
Tyler's got some strong feelings on this one.
Hold on a second. Let me ask a second question to that. Commodities versus players. And as a player, you're probably like, no, it's players versus people first. But you guys are in business now.
Yeah.
oh, your
Did that
commodity
ever
does.
change? And so what brought you around? Or not brought you around? Whatever.
I think the sooner you realize that you're a commodity as a player,
Better off you are.
the better off you are. I mean, and if you've gone through the combine process, they make it really clear.
Yeah.
It is a meat market. When you're standing up there in Darren's day in the gray shorts that covered half your thighs with no shirt, the Tom Brady picture, you realize that they only want you for your body. Like, that is it.
And I want to say this: see, this room, when we walked in this room today, with the lights facing us and the dark in the back, looks like the combine room when all you have on are shorts, and you step on a stage and it's no shirt.
No.
It's 80 some NFL personnel, scouts, coaches that are sitting out there, and the lights are facing you. You can't really see them, and they're telling you to stand there, open your arm. Turn,
I was
you
gonna
are
say.
beef. You are a commodity. And that's
Cattle
when it hit
auction.
me. It's
Cattle auction
It's
is
cattle
all it
auction.
is.
And that's the first time it hit me to think, yes, I know what I am.
Yeah, but those shorts are back in style now, so it's okay.
That's a
You
good
can
point.
rock
That is a
them.
good point. Hey, true. Darren and I have had this conversation. So in the NFL, like the training staff, they have these gray shorts. They're called gray. We called them grays, and it was what you would wear into the hot tub, right? That you could get wet, you throw them in the laundry bin, and they're just like community shorts that everyone would just throw on to get in the hot tub. Literally, I think I still own 2 or 3 pairs of the grays.
I know I do.
We love the grays.
Yeah, you always. It's because when we came in,
I associate it with the only time I wasn't stressed in the hot tub. Only time.
But not only that, but when you're in college, you hold on to everything.
Oh,
everything. You hoard things because you have no money, right? So when you get in the NFL, they give you all this stuff. You just
everything.
Oh my God! I can't believe you gave me this. This is free.
Hey, the sleeves are about that long now, right? It's all the way up to the neck ring. I'm gonna wear this someday for sure, but it's free. I'm keeping it. I've got bins and bins in my attic. The elastic when you pull the shorts out, it just cracks because the elastic is dried out so much. I'm telling you, they create monsters in college. When you gotta throw blows with your equipment manager in college to not wear pink socks anymore because they bled in and they have holes in the back, and you value a pair of fresh socks more than anything. Oh man, you know.
Who should the Cowboys take?
I don't know. Sorry.
They should take a pair of gray shorts. Apparently,
Oh my
team
God.
morale
The
sake.
grays. You can never go wrong with the grays.
Take him in the first round. I'm sorry.
Tyler, who's the Cowboys take?
I think that Surtain guy. I think you've got to the corner from Alabama. I think you got to go with someone like that makes an impact on defense. You've got Anthony Brown, and you got the Diggs.
Diggs.
Yeah, you got Diggs on the other side. But as a corner, and Darren could say this, an impactful corner, it takes a year or two to make that transition. That's what he's talking about. If he's a special player and he can make an impact immediately, you've got to ride with him because it's so hard to replace those types of guys. And the need is there. I mean, Jordan Lewis didn't make the impact that everyone thought that he was going to make. Cheeto didn't make the impact. I love the guys. And look, they're good players, but there is a hole, and we were exposed last year, and that's the reality of it. Look, I mean, if somebody talked about 2014 that we needed a better fullback, I'd be like, you're probably right. We needed a better fullback for the Cowboys.
Look, again, I'm best player, but if Surtain is there when they're picking, now you draft him because you get 2 bookend corners, and then you got Jordan Lewis who can play the slot, and he's dynamic when he's playing the slot receiver. So
you got options. And that's what we haven't had.
Look, I look at it this way. There's 3 needs for me. Cornerback is one. That's a huge need that they would need on the opposite side. If you can get a rush in that's spectacular at 10, because they're in a good position, you get a really good rush in to complement your other side over.
Question is, do you think they learned from passing on T.J. Watt?
Absolutely.
You think they learned from that?
Absolutely. I think they've learned it from that. Like you pass on a guy like T.J. Watt because you felt like he didn't fit your system.
Yeah.
No, you go get a guy who's a dog on the outside.
Yeah, dog.
That can rush the passer. Cornerback, rush the passer, protect the quarterback.
What would you say to somebody that's getting drafted today that you wish you knew?
Wait, one more time? You said that.
Somebody getting drafted today.
What would you say? What would you say to somebody who's getting drafted tomorrow that you wish you knew when you were getting drafted?
Enjoy the journey. Like it's a journey because these kids have gone. My situation. You go through the full season of your college season. You go to a bowl game, and then you go to these all-star, games leading up to the blue-gray game. The senior bowls or whatnot, and then you go from that process through the combine, and then you go through the draft day process. Just enjoy it. Like don't. I mean, I get it's serious and all, but these are memories that you'll never forget, and just lay in it for a little bit.
I want to add the tough question to Tyler.
Yeah.
What are you going to say to
different
people
perspective,
who are on the edge, who've played well but are not sure?
I'll speak really quickly to both. I think the first and second round picks, like the high draft picks, nobody owes you anything. Mm-hmm. You may feel like it. People may tell you that. Nobody owes you anything. And the sooner that you realize that this is just the start and I've got to go forward and I've got to – everything that took me to get here it's going to take 10 times more to stay here. And so you got to make a decision, like, do I want to be here? And so nobody owes you anything. You're not entitled to anything. As much as people say that to you, you got to continue to work and do all the small things that you did to get yourself here to stay there. And then the guys that are on the bubble, my advice, and this was something that someone told me, is you got to decide how bad do you want it, and what are you willing to go through to get there, because it's hell going back and forth. I mean, or trying to make it and trying to prove yourself. But if I could tell every single pick, whether they are picked or they're not, every kid that's going through the draft this year, is your identity is not in what you do. It's who you are. Make sure that you're not wrapped up in what draft pick you are, what team you go to, what your position is, what your stats were, what your future career looks like, because it happens like that. Whether you play for 2 years, whether you play for 3 years and 3 games like the national average, or you play for 13 plus years. Doesn't matter. It goes like that, and there's a lot of life after that. So make sure that your identity is not wrapped up in what it is. And honestly, it helps you. It helps you perform, because you don't go through the ups and downs. If you have a bad game, you don't have the lows. If you have a great game, you don't relax. It's like, look, this is something that I do. This is not who I am. Make sure you can separate those two things.
All right, 2 more questions from the audience real quick, and we'll hand it over. But the first thing is it hard to criticize players nowadays? I mean, or when does that change? Because you just mentioned Jordan Lewis and
So I gotta ask, is it hard to criticize them as a former player or as a current player?
Correct. Yeah, you're a former player.
Okay.
Is it hard to?
So the question is it hard to criticize current players from your position without feeling like a Monday morning quarterback? You guys have been there. You've lived it. You've done it. You've gone through every hardship.
Yeah.
And whether you tried to minimize the highs and lows, you lived them all.
So is it hard to?
You had to do it for a living.
I had to do it for a living at ESPN, and it was the hardest transition to make, was because these are guys that were your friends who are in who are in the locker room, and now you have to be critical of them and their play. And it took me a long time to get there, and ESPN kept on wanting me be critical of certain guys, and I just couldn't do it. I couldn't do it because, look, we watch football, and then on Monday morning we sit there and we go, well, this guy should have did this, and this guy should have done that, but you're not in that guy's shoes. You don't understand what's taking place, and I know, and I want you to speak on this, because on our podcast we've had this conversation, and no one tells the story better than Tyler, as far as how he depicts the criticism, because you really don't know. Tyler, I want you to run off that.
Yeah, and you mentioned like the criticism. That wasn't a criticism, and I think Jordan Lewis is a hell of a player. I think the expectations were set unfairly per se, and so and I think expectations in the Cowboys are always higher, and so it's just setting kids up to fail. And I say kids because here's the reality: the NFL, it just delays adolescence. Professional sports, it really does, because guys don't have to grow up, don't have to deal with certain things that the general public does, right? But and to your point though, Darren, it's really hard, because if it takes a player 5 minutes to talk through with their position coach why they did what they did, how can somebody in the media or just a fan understand exactly why he did what he did? There are so many complexities in the game. There's so many things that change in a millisecond that you have to be able to react to, and you have to make that not only make that decision to adjust your path, but you also have to now actually physically make your body do that. So to be able to sit and understand why someone did something, and I think of like this Pro Football Focus, right? They grade and they judge players, and everybody's now like, this is the standard, and this quarterback is this, because they have no idea what a quarterback sees when he's going through, a Tampa 2 defense when they disguise it as a Tampa 2 and then they come on a fire zone on the weak side, right? Why he made that adjustment to what he did. They have no idea why Tony Romo used to make on-the-line adjustments on his own, because he had a feeling as to why this defense was, because of the film study that he did. He had no idea that the fullback missed missed a block, not because of the fullback, and this is not my situation, but
He never missed a block. He never,
yeah, it
never
was
missed
the
one.
other 44. But because the center and the guard missed an A block, and he had to adjust back to the backside Will instead of the lead Mike that he was supposed to block. There's so many, complexities in the game that none of us can comprehend unless we're in the book. We understand what the adjustment, what the call is. I mean, running backs get roasted on TV all the time because they should have picked that blitz up. That's not their guy. That's literally the 9th guy in their scan that they're supposed to go, but he had time to react. The reality is the adjustment is so fast. So for us as fans, as spectators, as media, it really is until you're sitting in that room, you can't fully judge them. Now, there's high-level assessments, people that know the game. Like Darren knows the game as well as anybody. I mean, if you talk to anybody that's played with Darren, right, like he was a true student of the game. So he gets it. He sees certain things, but there's no way he could even still comprehend the complexity of the system, whatever the adjustment, because a play in week 3 is it's the same play, a completely different scheme and adjustment in week 5. Because based on the defense, based on the personnel, based on the defensive coordinator, based on the head coach. I mean, there's so many variables that go into it. So for us as fans to judge, it's really hard to do. Now, there's some very clean things.
There's some clean things. Like if you watch
man coverage, it's okay. Cover 0, it is what it is. You just got beat.
There's certain things like it's a one-on-one situation. You see guys get beat. Left tackle gets beat one-on-one by a rush in. Cornerback gets beat by a wide receiver, and you see the mistakes there. But what's hard to really calculate is when things are in a tight situation and they have to be disciplined in their reads and they're counting on one another to pick up certain things. And we're critical of someone gets beaten, we're like instantly jump on it. Oh, it's Tyler Clutts' fault. Well, the guard forgot to pick up his guy. Now Tyler sees it, and then he has to try to jump back. You just don't see those things. You just don't really understand those things. So for me at ESPN, it was hard to be critical because I understood the dynamic. I really understood the dynamic. I didn't understand what the fullback was doing, what his read was, or what the running back's read was. It's, per game it always changed, but it's hard to be critical of those situations. And even as former players, we always say, I would have done that. Bull crap. I was a guy who was in those situations and got beat.
It just wasn't in HD, right?
It wasn't in HD. It was in black and white. That's all good. So it's hard to be critical of in those situations. It really is.
I think it shows a lot of your guys' character that you both speak that exact same way, and it's been fun seeing more players become analysts and start analyzing Monday Night Football, and Tony Romo's a great example of it. And people have really gravitated towards an actual player's perspective rather than a Monday morning quarterback who's never been in the position, can see what's about to happen. They're reading the offense like they were in the game. That's exciting. I mean, that I think is cool for fans. Eric, you got some more rapid fire questions for us?
Sorry, I've got one left in between my French fry.
I hope that thing was turned off while you were sitting on it.
They're not the only ones. They're not the only ones. I believe they need another glass because they're not the only ones affected right now. The only other thing I would that we've had come through a couple times is once you got drafted, once you quote unquote made it, or you're active on a roster and you had a multi-year contract. Is there any family pressures you had? Or hold on a second, or posse, like, hey, I'm your boy, I'm your guy. We did this together.
Or your girl.
Oh, your girl, yeah.
And I actually want to hear this. I want to hear this from Darren first, and I want to hear this from Tyler second, because Tyler, it took you longer till you get that to get the contract, to get the long-term contract. Did that affect it?
I had a buddy, Deion Sanders, used to say, his buddies always said he changed, and he's like, "You damn right I changed." Right? So I don't need you guys to be hanging on. Well, look, it's honesty. It truly is. It's, once you make it, and it's not like you change, it's just your perspective. Things start to change within your life, right? Because now you're committed to an organization, and you can't just be running with your posse or your boys. So I always looked at it as, when I came in, who was my core? My core were my two brothers, my sister were my core, and my mom. and I had two great friends who always will forever be my core, and that was it. Now, once I got that check that Jerry Jones signed, I had so many people, cousins, second, third, fourth cousins, Nene and them. Like, I'm serious. Like, people were coming out of the woodworks. And I always looked at it as, I'm going to protect my core. I'm not going to, make decisions. And that's what happens to a lot of players when they get drafted. It's like they have these guys who are hanger-ons, who are leeches, call them what they are, who are leeches because you got paid. And now they want to benefit in the club, and they want to benefit by the people that and they want to hold on to those things, and they're not doing anything. And that's how a lot of players lose a lot of money.
Yeah.
It's those family members and those friends who won't let go and who drain them for everything they have in a short period of time. Yeah. So I definitely looked at it as a situation where I recognized it early, knew who my core was, and I stuck to that core.
Yeah. I think players recognize for the most part that they couldn't have gotten there without other people. Right? Whether it was a coach, whether it was a parent, whether it was a aunt, uncle, sibling, friend, I think they recognize that the challenge is you get the people that come out of the woodworks, and that one time that they helped you out, right? They're gonna call in that favor, and then they're gonna leech on and because you've known me, I got your back. You don't know any of these people, so that's a very real deal. But I do think it is important to recognize too, and to have the humility to say, look, I didn't get here on my own, right? And I was lucky enough, and I was blessed enough to get this platform. And now what can I do to impact and affect other people for the better? So I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, I think Darren's literally the first dollar that he spent was he bought his mother a car. Like, that was his goal in life, was to buy his mother a car.
Oh, what kind of car?
A Honda Accord.
It's a good car.
1992 Honda Accord. Hey, my mom was pushing a 1974 Nova at the time, brother. Ooh. So we had to do something.
That Nova's worth more now.
Thanks, Steve. Appreciate that. Maybe I should have held. It's a bad business decision. Huh?
But I mean, here's a real life example of I think the picture people think if you make it in the NFL. So I signed with the Cleveland Browns in their practice squad, which pay was $6,000 a week, which after taxes I saw about $3,800. In week one, I had 12 Facebook messages from people I went to high school with. Hey, I got this company. I want you to invest in it. You're in the NFL now. I was like, man, after rent, I've got $1,500 in my bank account. Like, there's a perspective. So if someone can ride along, and there's family members, unfortunately, that we've seen that do take advantage of it, and that expect, okay, hey, I'm done. I raised them, and I respect my parents so much, and the way that they raised me, and my dad through my career was always supportive. He never pushed. He was there. He was there when I didn't know he was there, didn't tell me he was there. But even when I finally made it to the NFL, they never asked for anything, because they were just so happy that I got to achieve my dream. And those are the people. That's your core, right? You give to those that don't ask for anything, because they're just that. Like, the joy that they get seeing you reach your potential, what God created you to do, that's what's worth it. And then, I mean, there's so many generous guys out there. There's so many people that recognize, look, the platform, I get to make this kind of money playing a game, a kid's game. And I get to make this kind of money. And the guys that have that perspective, I mean, are so generous. There's so many generous guys out there that you don't even know what they do.
You know what else sets in, though? The reality sets in. I'll tell you what the reality is. The reality is when in my example was, I got a signing bonus, and it was a good signing bonus, large signing bonus, and it's the most money I've ever seen in my life. And the one thing I remember was the process of, after you sign that and it goes into your account, is that the first thing that happens is there's a white guy with gray hair, and he wears an American flag, he shows up at the door. He shows up, and he is not playing around. He takes like 30-some%.
What was his line on our check?
FICA. I couldn't remember what his name. Like I was like, who is this FICA guy that's killing me every single week, right? So that's one, and then it's your agent who's going to get his cut. And again, you always want to take care of your mom, or whomever it is. So the money just seems like just drained. It's like it just starts to go.
Yeah.
And you see it firsthand, and then my mind comes back into saying, this is not going to last.
Right.
So, but it's the opposite for a lot of players. They end up going broke in the league. They keep on thinking that this is going to last forever.
Right.
And this weekly check, right?
This weekly check is going to keep coming.
Big checks in a 17-week span. This is never going to end.
Yeah.
Right. I think you guys described the difference between giving and sharing. And I think Tyler really summed it up perfectly, right? You share with the ones you love and the ones who got you there. You give when maybe you're being a little bit forced to, and it's not that comfortable. But Darren, to your point, everything has to add up to 100%.
Yeah.
And you start taking 10 here, 10 there, 10 there, and 38% or 42% or 100% if you're in California, then you're pretty close to zero pretty fast. So
you coming out anytime soon? Come on.
All right, I think we got to wrap it up. Not only with the venue, but also we want to be respectful of Darren and Tyler's time. We make sure that they have plenty of time to eat their French fries. I want to say thank
Where'd
you
y'all
guys.
get these fries from? Honestly, where'd you get them?
No, these guys are amazing. The Network Bar here in Dallas
Really?
has been amazing.
If you haven't heard,
Yes.
you gotta listen to their podcast about the best fries in Dallas.
Yes.
I've heard it.
As a matter of fact, I think they're
I'm
going
not
to
gonna say
just.
who it is because I don't piss anyone
So
off.
I'm gonna say these rival my number one fries.
And you have to listen to the podcast to find out who number one is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
It's
that makes
amazing.
sense.
Joe, thank you. Any last parting words before we head out?
I got nothing. This has been great hanging out with you
Man,
guys.
this was
and
awesome.
Sipping some
This
wine,
was
man.
so fun.
I'll do this any day of the week.
All right.
Yeah, I really feel we could have gone for 4, 5, 6 hours.
Easily.
Woody, thank you. Tyler, thank you. Both very different perspectives. Tell you what, if y'all are here right now, hang out for a minute. Guys online right now, I appreciate y'all hanging out. And please check out the podcast, The Darren Woodson Show, which will probably be renamed in 30 days. Yeah.
Depending on you better hurry up.
All right. Yeah. And then also check us out in Good Taste Wines. We're breaking down all the barriers to wine. We're fun. Come try us out. Let's hang out. Thank you, everybody. Good night.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So now that's off.
Yeah, hurry up, I can cuss.
No, it's. I heard y'all's podcast about the best French fries in Dallas. I think it was Nick and Sam.
Nick and Sam's, yeah.
I'm like, these are